Well, one day I'll get everything situated. Oh, God, here we are.
Wondering where we're going.
What's up, boys? We are back today. Dude, a lot going on. Jordan Peterson's off his rocker, dude. He's off his rocker. We're going to go over that today, a little bit before and after. Maybe a little MK Ultra going on, Josh?
I mean, after what we talked about yesterday with rehab facilities in USA not working and him now going to he had been to Russia for rehab.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, like, what the hell is not going on over here that's going on over there, and why did it work?
We might get a little bit of taste of what actually happened now. So we're going to cover that. We're going to cover his crash out. We're going to cover his rehab over in Russia. When he was on Joe Rogan about 3 years ago, he kind of went into it for about 10 minutes. We're going to react to that. And then we are going to kind of look back on what used to be the Jordan Peterson that everybody looked up to, but obviously it no longer exist. And then break down what he said on Joe Rogan the other day and what he said on Fox News. Before we get into that, I got a little something that's kind of going viral for you guys. You maybe might get a little kick of this one. Bro,
whoa.
What? Have you
Wait, was that Dawn?
Yeah. Hold on.
Oh my God. You played a second of this before the show started. I didn't catch that. That was Dawn. Oh, in the corner.
It was dish soap,
near my view. Oh my God. Yeah. Right.
I'm sorry.
I'll do the math. There.
Boom.
Right there.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
Dude, like I've seen the washing chicken with soap thing, but this is next level. And I don't know. I don't think it's clickbait, dude. I think she's actually washing the meat. Like I say that and I don't believe myself. Oh, dude. Oh man, there's no way, dude. All right, we're gonna skip.
Dinner is done. We have lettuce wraps or lettuce tacos. Let's try them.
So I was looking at some other stuff. I was looking at some of the comments in that comment section of that video, and somebody had posted.
Why people ain't seasoning their food?
Somebody had posted the long-term effects of soap consumption is brain damage. The long-term effects of soap consumption is brain damage. So here's an idea. Let's stop cleaning our food with soap, and so we don't have brain damage. I mean, there's a high correlation there. I don't know if it's technically a causation, but there's obviously some connections going on.
For a second, I thought this was like how to kill your husband and have plausible deniability type stuff, but it came across like it was like what, lettuce tacos. It's like it's absolutely one of those.
She's got problems, dude. She's got problems.
Yeah. Welcome to the Chat Ninja of Spades. Welcome back. Definitely our top tier.
Somebody needs to get her some.
Commenter.
Somebody needs to get him some Lowry seasoned salt. Lowry seasoned soap. There we go. That'd be good. Again, before we jump into Jordan Peterson, I got one more for you. We're going to cover this. I want to talk about surrogacy a little bit today. And the
what was that?
Surrogacy.
Oh, surrogate. I thought you
surrogacy.
said circacy.
Buying children, specifically with the faggots, in adoption, and everything that comes along with that. When you have gays and lesbians out there buying kids, you know, the gays buy the boys, the lesbians buy the boys, everybody buys the boys. But there's another aspect of this.
What? The lesbians buy the boys?
They all buy the boys.
I mean, I know why the gay men do, because
they're going to molest them.
They molest them.
Yeah, it works both ways. They're all gay. Everybody's gay.
Yikes.
Just
dude.
extra words.
Oh, that's concerning.
But there's another aspect of this thing, and we're gonna take a look at this. This one's making its rounds today. Pete Buttigieg, everybody knows he's quite famous.
Have you thought about when your son gets older, his experience in the world? probably different from yours. Like, how would you have those combos with him? Or even, let's say, your daughter, like, learning to deal with her hair. It's going to be a little difficult. Like,
I guess he does.
Have you thought about these things? Do they concern you?
Yeah, we think about it all the time, and it's not like we have it all figured out. So we were in.
But if anybody knows how important identity is,
of course. So we were in what's called a surprise adoption scenario. So we literally I was at work. I was traveling. We got a phone call. Chaston called me. And the next day, we were in a rural Midwestern hospital holding him in our arms, and they were like, 1 day old. Like, it was like that. Like, just from like normal life to like, and by the way, it's twins, which was amazing.
You didn't know it was twins before.
We were just on a list. You know, we said that we were willing to adopt.
We're on a list. We're just going shopping. It's like we go down to the retail store. I'm going shopping. I'm going to go buy me 2 shirts, Josh. We're just on the list.
Yeah, it's basically pre-ordering prostitution.
We wanted to adopt. We said that we wanted to adopt without regard for race. By the way, anybody who says race is not a thing in this country should experience an adoption process where there are literally different lists. If you say that you want a white kid only versus if you say that doesn't matter. Like, literally.
What was that, Josh?
You get put on a different list if you say you want a white kid only, as opposed to it doesn't matter.
Correct. Now listen to the rest of this.
Okay.
It gets insane. It gets worse.
Really a different list.
What is that? What do you mean by that?
The list for white kid only is longer. And not only that, there was actually a discount, or you didn't have to pay.
Oh, what was that? What was that, Josh?
There's a discount.
What was that, Josh?
Listen.
There was actually a discount, or you didn't have to pay a deposit on the fee.
Discounts.
This is like how it works. I couldn't.
Hold on. How did they not push back on this immediately, dog?
Wait.
How did they not push back on this immediately?
The list for white kids is longer, and there's a discount for getting a white kid?
For a non-white kid.
Oh, for a non-white kid.
They did.
And
you discount non-white kids on adoption.
And you don't have to pay. Oh, what was it? What's a down payment?
The deposit.
Oh,
He said discount.
The deposit.
He said discount. He meant discount. He changed his mind to deposit mid-sentence or mid-word.
There was actually a discount, or you didn't have to pay a deposit.
Dude, these faggots need to be hung from a tree. I mean, that's all it is. Everybody wants to say jail or prison. No, they need to be. Pete Buttigieg needs to get tossed in the ocean with a rope around his neck and a millstone on the other end. It's literally that simple.
Yeah, that literally. How is this not child abduction?
It is.
You're literally like stealing a child away from its mother. And yeah, like the mother's not to blame. She's clearly like just selling out her womb.
I get adoption. I don't get the faggots.
No. Yeah. That's like it's one of those things where that's one of those issues. It's like trying to, if someone was like, well, why is murder wrong? It's like, why do I need to tell you this?
Yeah, it's obvious.
That like artificially inseminating a volunteer.
He said Freudian slip. I don't think it was a Freudian slip. Even if it was a Freudian slip, you still don't have to pay the deposit, which in itself is a discount.
I wouldn't be surprised if they just refer to it as a discount. It's like, hey, you get it. Like the Hispanic, Black, Asian, whatever kids are not as expensive.
This is like how it works. I couldn't believe it. So we didn't know anything about the racial identity of the kids until they started to look mixed race. The list for white kid only is longer.
This is insane.
And not only that, there was actually a discount, or you didn't have to pay a deposit.
Dude, it wasn't like a Freudian slip. Is like, okay, I start the word and I change it mid word. He got the full thing out and then it said, "Oops, I'm on TV. I kind of fucked up there. I'm not with my gay buddies in the locker room."
Are his kids white?
I don't know. I don't think it cares that much. I don't care. I don't care that much. But dude, I mean, that's
Discounts.
This is like how it works. I couldn't believe it. So we didn't know anything about the racial identity of the kids until they started to look
quick.
Mixed race, which they are. And
so maybe he's about to say this, and if he is, just let me know. But like,
I don't know. That's all
is his point that it's bad that that's the case? Because he's going, I couldn't believe it. But like, what is like, what's the argument that like white kids are more expensive? Should they? Is he upset that they're not all the same price? I don't understand, because I feel
just off the basis of per capita, you would expect white lists to be longer because there's more white people and there's going to be a higher adoption rate across white families. And then if you look at, I haven't looked at the actual statistics. I'm just kind of going off the top of my head. It just makes sense that lower income correlates to non-whites, which would correlate to higher giving up for adoption rather than getting adopted. Does that make sense? So, I guess I understand the economics of it, but that's the problem. It shouldn't have an economic aspect to it at all.
Also,
and
maybe
shouldn't exist.
White women are less likely to sell their womb.
I think they're more likely, dude. I think they're more likely. I don't think I've seen a surrogate that's non-white.
Well, I maybe in America.
That's something we need to look into. I do want to do a surrogacy stream too. I hate it, dude. It's child trafficking, dude.
Yeah,
First of all, first super chat from Lord of the Ree. The Benzos made Dr. Kermit mentally handicapped. Well, that's correct.
We're gonna get to that.
That's exactly what I said. We're gonna get to it. I'll pull it back up when we get there. But we're gonna dive pretty deep into Dr. Peterson today.
Thank you.
Just
Lord
got here.
Reed.
Is he buying sex slaves? Yes. Sounds sick. Yes. That's basically what it boils down to.
Now, does he mean sick as in like that's sick, or
and
don't do him like that, man?
Contending with like the hair thing is already like a thing, and like lots of advice, especially from like black parents who like see stuff on Instagram, or they're like, let me tell you how to do it. Like a lot of advice. And like to begin with, like the idea of being a girl dad and dealing with girl hair was pretty intimidating. Like I think that's about it. Be in a way that they will be. And we
I just thought that was extremely interesting.
Things, which I know is coming sooner.
That one, he laid that out. Two,
that they know
he's adopting kids to molest them. Essentially, that's what they're all doing. Where's the? I had a let's see here. Where's old Rubenstein at? This is Dave Rubin. He needs to get hung on a millstone too. And DeSantis sent him those Future Freedom Voter onesies for his two children that he bought with his faggot friend too.
With his roommate.
Yeah.
That's sick.
That's enough of the faggotry today. We're going to dive into a little bit of Jordan Peterson. Going to pull up. First of all, we're going to do the Joe Rogan clip, and then he also went on Fox, and we're going to cover that one also.
Was the Fox before or after Rogan?
I can't remember. I don't know. Would you want to do the Fox one first?
No, do Rogan first. All
right, we'll do Rogan first.
Yeah.
You also set that conversation up, but it poked up and made itself manifest in that conversation. And the issue is, how do you identify the psychopathic pretenders? And it's even worse now, and then make a barrier, right? Now, the right was calling for the left to do that for decades, and they didn't, and they couldn't. And the left is not good at drawing barriers, partly temperamentally. The right is somewhat better, but there's no shortage of monstrosity there. And so then the question is, how do you draw the line? And that's kind of what I was, because I've been watching these right-wing, they're not right-wing, these psychopathic types manipulate the edge of the conservative movement for their own gain. And a lot of that's cloaked in anti-Semitic.
Josh, how dare someone try to move the Overton window? How dare someone try to have a revolution when the country's falling apart?
Well, and what's funny is, and I'm sure we'll get to this in a second, but he is talking about specific people. But the thing is even if he wasn't talking about one person in particular, he's not like he.
We'll get there, Ninja.
He's to like quote his, where's the camera? Like he's massaging the point where he's basically like creating, it's the dragon, it's this fictional like demonic entity before he like sets it up in people's mind. Maybe that's like hypnosis he learned in Russia, secondhand from his rehab or something like that.
Yeah, we'll get to the rehab thing, but yeah, he's obviously talking about specific names, and we're gonna get to them maybe right after this, but. And then we'll knock out the Fox.
There's plenty of anti-Semitism on the left too, by the way. So it's not unique to the right.
Well, particularly now.
Yes, particularly now.
Right.
And so, you've let your curiosity guide you, your curiosity and your desire
Who will say Nick Fuentes? I'll play him
for knowledge. This quest, you've let that guide you as a podcaster. And by the way, I'm trying to work through exactly the same sort of thing.
Dare someone pet
How
the
do you
dragon.
know?
Dude, that's a good one.
That's funny.
Given your radical increase in stature over the last 10 years, how do you know when your curiosity and even your skepticism about the fact that things aren't the way that people say they are, because that's certainly been demonstrated in the last 10 years, how should anyone decide what guardrails to put up? Like, what do you look for?
You know what he's asking,
Dude.
Josh? You know what he's asking? How do you gatekeep, dude? I want to help gatekeep. Let me gatekeep. I'm getting paid to gatekeep. Let me gatekeep for you.
Well, yeah, so tell me, you told me a quote from someone the other day where you almost need the extremists because what they said was it makes your position look more palatable.
Yeah, so Andrew Eisker and CJ Engel, they host a podcast called Contra Mundum. They're pretty staunch Christian nationalists, and basically they laid out the tactic that the left use that's called ratcheting. And so you allow your extremists to exist and maybe even allow them to be more extreme and more radical, because what that does is that normalizes your position more and seems more palatable than the extremists. And this is what the right's done so far for so long, since World War I really is, and more increasingly into the 60s, 70s, is that they have ostracized the people to their right, and they continue to do that, which is exactly what Jordan Peterson is trying to do right here, is they ostracize the people to their right, and then they seem as extremist to anyone to the left of them. And so this is the issue. You need that ratchet strap. You need the people to push the Overton window, and I think that's what we're trying to do. This is what Nick Fuentes tries to do. This is what Myron does, Tate, I mean, the entire red pill, and then you have a lot on the Christian nationalist side that the circles that I run in, like Stone Choir, if you want to check them out, they're a good outlet, but we're pushing the Overton window and we're normalizing the position to our left the further we go to the right.
Well, and two things I want to say before we continue is this. So it's clear to me, because I haven't paid too much attention to Jordan Peterson in a long time. And you kind of telling me about the benzo thing, his addiction, it's super clear to see now. Like he's like rambling, he's losing his train of thought, like not like he used to.
It's not an old age thing either.
No. I definitely think you're right. But also on top of that, it's basically because he always does this where he just goes so big and long and around the point. What he is saying is, like you said, Zeb, he's describing gatekeeping. He goes, how do we gatekeep the right-wing
that's
movement?
exactly what he's doing.
But the funny thing is isn't the best way to do that to basically say, okay, because he's talking about people. He's like, well, there's these psychopaths. Why not engage with them to show the average person why they're psychopathic? Why not just explain it? He's talking about ignoring. How's the best way to ignore these people?
Well, these are the same people that, before we get there, Super Chat, Lord of the Ree, much like how the left projects their internalized racism onto others. Yeah, a lot of this is projection. These woke right grifters project their psychopathy and bad faith arguments. Yeah, so he's got woke right in quotes. This is what a lot of them want to call the woke right, is they want to call us the woke right, when in turn it's them that want to do the cancel culture aspect. They want to do the leftist tactics, the effeminization of politics, right? They don't want to actually engage, and we're going to get into that here in a second. Matter of fact, let's go ahead and jump into it. There's a few people that they specifically don't want to engage with, and this is one of them. Lord Doree, thank you for the super chat.
You watch Jordan Peterson and he says, that's a satanic, sociopathic conspiracy theory. They don't believe what they're saying. They're doing it for money. They're doing it for personal gain. They're doing it just for fun because they're evil, because they're sociopathic troll demons. And it's like, to a reasonable person, which makes more sense? You're watching these two movies, you're watching these two shows, which makes more sense? That an 18-year-old college dropout who is animated by the Trump election in 2016, and in reaction to the woke left-wing progressive culture that was prevalent at that time, which makes more sense that that kid stands up and says, I'm America first, I support Trump's agenda, and finds out that in the way of America first is this very powerful foreign lobby. That 18-year-old stands up authentically and sincerely out of conviction in favor of American nationalism, but stumbles upon an inconvenient discovery, which is that in the way of America first, in the way of America asserting its interests before all other nations, is an unlikely obstacle. It's our closest ally.
Yeah, I mean, Nick makes the point that they actively avoid him. And these are the people that champion free speech. The Charlie Kirk, even Tim Pool, Jordan Peterson, Ben Shapiro, all of these guys that have been around for a while, they actively avoid anyone that threatens them from the right. It's like they can't acknowledge their existence.
Well, and it's very clear because something like transgenderism, which, almost, it's hard to believe 2015, 10 years ago, but 10 years ago, that was something where it was like, why is anyone engaging with these people at all? It's so clearly wrong. And nowadays, you do have people but it ended up happening and it almost legitimized the movement. That's why they can't do it with people like Nick, where he talks about, the Israeli influence in our country. And so that's why they can't do it. But honestly, the best thing for them to do, if they're right, is to shut him down, is to embarrass him. Jordan Peterson had a debate with Destiny, and even after the benzos, he kicked Destiny's ass.
That was brutal. Destiny's just not on par intellectually. Not even close.
He's a retard.
And he talks too fast. He just steamrolls people. That's the only way he wins debates, not tactically and not intellectually. But we have to recognize that the Daily Wire is in a spiral. They picked up Jordan Peterson at some astronomical number, and he simply hasn't delivered on that. They lost Candace Owens. They lost Brett Cooper. I mean, these were millions of views per video, and now they're sitting at, I don't know, some of Brett Cooper's videos are like 17, 20,000.
And I want to say this. So Ninja of Spades says, JP has always said generic truths with too many big words, nonsense machine, clean your mind's bathroom, bucko. First off, I want to say thank you for that comment. And you're a zinger machine, dude. You're really funny in the comments. You really make me laugh. But it's absolutely true. And you see this because if y'all remember back to what made Jordan Peterson famous in the first place, he was a professor before he kind of blew up in the right-wing political movement. And he basically, that's what he did, is he is good. To his credit, he's not dumb. Like, he is a smart person, but what makes him good is that he is a teacher. He's good at conveying ideas that people already have and articulating them in a way that they couldn't do themselves. And that's why he's appealing. But in cases like this, where he is trying to gatekeep, it just comes across, it comes across as rambling.
He's lost it, dude. They fried his brain. I mean, I've read these. Well, I've read most of Maps of Meaning. But these are Jordan Peterson's. Dude, I used to be a huge Jordan Peterson follower. A lot of them were. These guys were looking for purpose. They were looking for somebody to look up to. And what has happened is they've lost that because they are unable to push this Overton window. They've served their purpose. They were a bridge into another realm that they don't control anymore. And so what we have is the envy coming out of them because they no longer have the reins. They've lost control. They have no control of what is right. They have no control of the lock on the gate, which is exactly what he was asking Joe Rogan a minute ago. They know where to go to. Ninja Spade said, meth mouth gremlin.
Which apparently has this massive lobby, which is exerting its influence in these basically clandestine...
Oh, yeah, that's another thing, dude. Jordan Peterson's not even American.
Dual citizen. Get him out of here.
No, he's not. I don't think he's an American citizen. No. He's here on the back of his daughter. His daughter got an O1 visa for business that she was operating in the U.S. And so they moved here, and then he got a visa on top of that O1 visa because they can bring family over.
Well,
he's not even American. Deport him. Send him back. Send her back. Send them all back.
From what I hear about his daughter, I'm surprised she has room on her back for him.
Dude.
He has to push Andrew Tate aside.
Dude. The video of Andrew Tate streaming with her walking in the background is absolutely hilarious. Have you seen that one?
A while ago.
That's hilarious, dude. Anyway, I
don't have ways. And when you talk about the ways in which our society is being influenced clandestinely, covertly, you become a target. You get smeared, slandered, destroyed. Is it more likely that that is what took place? Or is it more likely that it's like Rosemary's Baby? Like the devil had a baby with a woman. Like Satan had a baby with a woman. And that baby was pure evil from the beginning. He was a sociopath. He hated Jews for no reason. He was a white ethnic who grew up in a working class family in Chicago, but just hated Jews for no reason. And out of pure malevolence, started using valid information, but mixing it with speculation to create a lethal conspiracy theory with no purpose other than malice against the Jews.
What it is, Josh, I showed you a video one time of Corey J. Mahler in a debate, and the guy he was debating basically said he makes these the most rational sounding of arguments. And you said it's the opposite of tone policing, right? That's exactly exactly what these people are doing. They're getting mad that the facts aren't on their side, and so I like the way you're saying it, but I don't like what you're saying, right? And this is why optics are on our side.
And did that for 10 years, getting banned from banks, losing favor with friends and associates, getting their name run through the mud, but just persisted in the evil out of malevolence. Like, what's more likely here? If you're being logical, if you're being fair, if you're hearing both sides, which person sounds crazy? The person that says, yeah, the AIPAC money, not really America first. Deporting people who criticize Israel, not really America first. And I don't think there should be foreign students that criticize America, but they're being deported because they criticized Israel. You know, choking off Harvard because we don't like what they're teaching about Israel. It's not really America first. Does that make sense? Or does it make more sense that, you know, Generation Z is just filled with malevolence against the Jews for no reason? And then one day, for no reason at all, you know, everyone got mad at Israel. Like, and I almost wondered, did they hear themselves? Like Jordan Peterson, hey man, get a grip. I don't know. And the puzzle to me is Peterson's obviously a very intelligent guy. He's obviously somebody who was very influential and important to the development of a lot of young men from my generation.
Yeah. Nick's about to make this point too. I entirely agree with him. I mean, Jordan Peterson was literally on top of the world. Anything he said went prior to COVID, really, for like 3 or 4 years. And we're going to get into some of those clips after this. We're going to cover this. We're going to cover Fox, and then we're going to cover his other appearance on Joe Rogan. And then we're going to kind of cover the best of Jordan Peterson. And none of the clips are anything recent, like within the last 4 years.
I remember, I don't know how you felt, but in 2015, when all the transgenderism stuff started to become popular, there was this feeling of like helplessness. It was like, we are truly falling into like just like unimaginable evil. And it was so nice to see someone who was a college professor being rational. Like everyone I knew was into
somebody
Jordan Peterson.
standing up, that's at least candidly standing up and not just typing up a mean worded letter. Like he was actually doing something, and that's why people followed him, because he was actually standing up for it. I mean, he lost his professorship at I believe it was Evergreen in Canada, but somebody was actually willing to lose something for the sake of principle. That doesn't exist anymore, as we just saw on his Joe Rogan appearance. I mean, he was advocating gatekeeping.
Many close friends of mine were huge Jordan Peterson fans because of his Bible lecture series, because of the work he was doing 10 years ago. How does a person who's intelligent and at one point had a lot of credibility, how is he now saying things that make no sense like this? I wonder, is it the drugs? Is it mental illness? And I'm not saying that to be like a jerk, but he's had a struggle with mental illness and he's crying all the time. Like, this is not a stable person. Is it he's being paid off?
All of the above.
Just don't know. But the bigger puzzle is I don't know how anybody is still listening to that side of the story. And this is how you know who's right and who's wrong, who's confident in their position. I have said, I've been doing this for 8 years now. Every year for 8 years, I have said, give me Charlie Kirk, give me Ben Shapiro, give me Jordan Peterson. As a matter of fact, I'll settle for the next best thing. Give me Benny Johnson, give me Andrew Clavin, give me their second in command. Give me.
They would never sacrifice their second in command like that.
They won't do it. He'd win.
Dude, I mean, yeah, Nick's been doing this a long time, dude. I know Josh watches him a little bit. I don't really watch him anymore, just don't have time. But I was around back when got kicked off of YouTube, had to end up on D Live. Dude, I've been around these circles for a while. I'm on board. The question is, what did Jordan do? That's a solid question. We already played a clip from Joe Rogan talking about he's essentially advocating gatekeeping, and anybody that is loosely defined as anti-Semitic as a psychopath. While defining the psychopaths, he's defining himself and those in his circle. We're going to jump into this Fox interview real quick.
Well, I think
this is extremely charitable, Chris. Benny Johnson has a 60 IQ. I mean, that's pretty charitable, man. I mean, the question is, how high does your IQ have to be able to read an article into a camera? I think that's the real question. But yeah, this is Jordan Peterson. I think it was just recently too, where he had a showing on Fox News. I mean, what are they doing? Sending him around to try to, I don't know, start this gatekeeping again. Anti-Semitism bad.
The most important thing to do first is to draw a distinction between the political and the psychological, and not to collapse them together. So imagine this. Imagine that there's a group of individuals, about 4% of the population, who have a set of personality characteristics.
Let's just say, let's just, for a second with me here, just imagine he said 2%.
That have been described as dark tetrad. So they're Machiavellian. They use their language to manipulate. They're narcissistic. They want unearned social status and reputation. They're psychopathic, which makes them free of empathy and parasitical and predatory, and they're sadistic. So they take positive delight in the unnecessary suffering of others. Now, those people also use false cries of victimization, let's say, to manipulate, and they're entitled. They seek vengeance when it's unwarranted, and they protest loudly and make very public cries for reparations that would be self-serving. Okay, now the way those people operate is they look for what patterns of belief form groups that they can infiltrate and then capitalize on. And that happens on the right. We did a report, the same group, on the use of Christ as king as a manipulative strategy by bad actors, hypothetically on the right. And this report identified the same sort of people.
What did he say?
And
so I don't think we actually talked about this. Did you hear about this article?
I saw the headline.
Yeah, so basically,
did you read it?
I skimmed it, I'll be honest. But basically, him, an Indian guy, and 11 other Jewish people wrote an article about how the phrase Christ is king is anti-Semitic. Jordan Peterson, Mr. slay the dragon, Christ is the ideal archetype. To say Christ is king is anti-Semitic.
Yes. I remember seeing that.
And I think that was published by, maybe it was Heritage Foundation, but it could have been, I want to say the ADL.
It could have been any of them, man. I think Candace Owen used to use a similar argument for those who oppose the vax, not 100% sure. I mean, speaking about the vax, I mean, Jordan Peterson wasn't entirely against the vax. I mean, he was aligned with Ben Shapiro where he wanted people to get the vax. Not necessarily mandate, but he was definitely pro-vax in that situation. All of these people have flipped, obviously, because they were wrong. And so what you have is when you have people that like this that kind of flip-flop when they're wrong, they don't admit that they're wrong, and then you continue to believe what they say, it's kind of on you. You should have discernment against someone that doesn't have good discernment. Like, that's an obvious issue COVID was. But yeah, Christ is King is not, I mean, it in itself is anti-Semitic, sure, but who cares?
What happens on the right? We did a report, the same group, on the use of Christ as King as a manipulative strategy by bad actors, hypothetically on the right. And this report identified the same sort of people on the left. But it's not primarily political. They're wolves in sheep's clothing who look for where there's power and value and then adopt those beliefs as a surface camouflage so that they can elevate their moral status. Now, and this has become worse in recent years as far as I'm concerned, because the evolved strategies that we have for dealing with these psychopathic types, psychopathic narcissistic types, don't work well online. And so the psychopaths can get away with their terrible manipulations online, and they can find like-minded people, and they can escape from any reputational consequences. And so there's always been psychopaths. Those are the Pharisees, for example, that Christ points to, the religious pretenders. Those are the people who use God's name in vain and claim moral virtue and even religious devotion. Well, all they're doing is feathering their own nests and furthering their own narrow interests.
I mean, dude, a lot of this is just projection.
That's nuts. It's good. Pull up the Pew Silent one real quick. Yeah, it says, have you guys watched his debate with George Janko or Tim Tebow? That's who he's talking about. It's not who he's talking about, because in the clip we show, I don't think it showed completely the whole thing, the one with him on Rogan.
Yeah.
But he names the Groypers. He names the Groypers, which for those of you who don't know, that's the name of Nick Fuentes' followers.
Where's the Rogan clip? Yeah, he's talking specifically about...
It poked up and made it... When your curiosity, radical curiosity and your desire for knowledge, this quest, you've let that guide you as a podcaster. And by the way, I'm trying to work through exactly the same sort of thing. How do you know, given your radical increase in stature over the last 10 years, how do you know when your curiosity and even your skepticism about the fact that things aren't the way that people say they are, because that's certainly been demonstrated in the last 10 years, how should anyone decide what guardrails to put up? Like, what do you look for?
Well, first of all, Jordan Peterson is not a Christian. He actively denies Christ.
And that is a very Jewish debate tactic you see, where they will categorize a certain behavior with something like psychopathy, and then later on they will direct attention to a specific person or group, and then characterize that same. They'll use that same behavior in association with them, so they will get away with basically calling whoever they want psychopaths, whatever, doing a what's the word? An ad hominem attack without actually saying it.
It's the same thing they do with Hitler, same thing they do with Putin. They don't want to try to understand the situation. They don't want to try to...
Well, they understand it. They don't want other people to understand
They don't want to, they don't want to lay out the intricacies of the thing. These are people that they're complex. This isn't a simple situation, right? And so they just want to say, oh, they're evil, or oh, they're crazy, and just kind of push it on down the line and just not actually address the issue itself. I want to get where
the conservative movement for their own gain. Right. And a lot of that's cloaked in anti-Semitic guys. There's plenty of anti-Semitism on the left too, by the way. So it's not unique to the... So then the question
I don't
is,
know.
How do you...
Anyway, he names the Groypers specifically after he generalizes.
I forget which commenter said it, but yeah, he's not talking about his interview with Tim Tebow.
Let me get this situated real quick. This is a really brief...
Do you want to know where to invest $1,000 right now? Well, forget about AI, quantum computing, electric vehicles, crypto.
This is
the Joe Rogan experience.
What is it like to be you? Like, what is it like to...
This is going to be a clip of him kind of detailing his MK Ultra-esque escapades in Russia, if I can ever get it where we need to go. Josh, say words to the people.
One day we will. Maybe one day we'll have a meeting before the show and do some show prep instead of doing it during the show.
Well, stop working, dude. Stop working and come work for me.
What do you do before I get here?
And then I know, you've gone through a lot of shit. And this latest thing with getting off of the benzodiazepine, that to me was a real shocker. Because first of all, I had no idea that you were taking it. And then to find out that it's that difficult to get off of, and then to hear from other people that have tried to get off of it how difficult it is, and then to realize how many people around me have an issue with that stuff. Xanax is a motherfucker. And I didn't know what a motherfucker it was until I talked to a friend who is a counselor at a drug rehab center, where he was saying that that is one of the ways that people get locked back into drinking and doing drugs, is a psychiatrist will prescribe Xanax. And sober people who get on Xanax all of a sudden start drinking. He said it's super common. He said that it's one of the most difficult drugs to get off of. He said, and this is something that Dr. Carl Hart, who's I love him to death. He's brilliant. He speaks so openly and honestly about drugs, and the guy's a professor at Columbia. He said that there's 2 drugs that will kill you when you get off of them. He goes, it's alcohol and benzodiazepine. Those are the 2 that if you just quit, you'll fucking die. And
or you wish you would.
Meanwhile, they're handing those things out like Tic Tacs.
Yeah. Well, they were regarded as a safe substitute for barbiturates.
First off, him in like the penguin suit. Like everyone knows about the Harvey Dent suit, but that just he does not look good there.
Did it throw you off a little bit, Josh?
It did. Like, could you rewind a second and like maybe pause it right on that?
And this is something that Dr. Carl Hart, who's I love him to death. He's brilliant. He speaks so openly and honestly about drugs, and the guy's a professor at Columbia. He said that there's 2 drugs that will kill you when you get off of them. He goes, it's alcohol and benzodiazepine. Those are the 2 that if you just quit, you'll fucking die. And
or you wish you would.
Meanwhile, they're handing
yeah, that quick. He's just
things out like Tic Tacs.
Yeah. Well, they were regarded as.
Or you wish you would. I mean, what's the saying? I think Two-Face says it. It says, no, it's Joker. He says, you either die the hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. I mean, this is exactly what
Two-Face said that.
Did he?
Yeah.
This is exactly what we're seeing in real time.
As a safe substitute for barbiturates. And you could easily overdose on barbiturates, especially with alcohol.
Well, when did they know? When was it in the literature, the difficulty of detoxing yourself from these?
Very recently.
Really?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. And when did they start being handed out?
20 years ago.
Fuck.
More.
So what happened? People just stayed on them?
Often.
I have one good friend that takes it every day. And takes it
funny.
oftentimes with alcohol, which I know you're absolutely not.
Getting addicted to benzos is not funny. The funny part is the entire switch up. I mean, he's an entirely different person than he was pre-Russia rehab. Entirely different. We've kind of gone over some of the bad stuff recently, but I want to get through this, and then we can jump in some of the good old days, a little bit of nostalgia, Jordan Peterson, kind of look back and see where we've come, Josh.
Supposed to do. There's not a damn thing I can do about it. This is a friend that I love to death, and I put my hands up and I go, there's nothing I can do. And he's been on it for more than 10 years.
Yeah, well, I started taking them because I was ill.
Yeah.
And they helped because I couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep at all. I don't know. I still really don't know what happened.
You couldn't sleep, and so an anti-anxiety medication. Do you think that this is one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about? This is why I brought up the fame thing. How much of the pressure of being attacked by all these different people and having these people write these? I
want to address this comment real quick. Would you guys disagree that some guardrails are good to have when talking with people you consider too radical? I would say guardrails, yes. Gatekeeping, no. And the difference is gatekeeping is allowing the thing to happen, the conversation to happen, and just shutting it down before it even happens and not engaging with the person at all. This is what has happened to everybody that's been ostracized on the right, some of the red pill guys, even some far leftists that aren't platformed. The issue is if you alienate them, there will become a following that grows because radicalization is enticing. right or wrong, it is enticing to people. They want something to happen, and they follow people that will risk the thing. The guardrails, I would say, are more. This is a little bit semantic, but guardrails, I would say, are where the conversation is actually going to happen. And so we can platform whoever we want to, but maybe the guardrails of the conversation aren't necessarily the way to have that conversation. And for an example would be this: I don't dabble in relationship advice. I don't dabble in this extreme red pillist of manosphere type stuff. And so I didn't really engage with Myron on that. I disagree with him, but that's just not my thing. And so I'm not going to even try to have that conversation. But the issue is all of these people want to gatekeep the conversations that need to be had and not necessarily apply guardrails because they are in this same narrow aspect of the political realm.
Yeah, and to kind of like give a specific thing, if I like give my take on the question, which is basically, should we have guardrails? To echo you, basically, it's like, yes, but what are they? And I'll give a perfect example. I think the transgenderism thing is something that does not need to be addressed out in the public. If someone like Caitlyn Jenner...
Hold on, Josh. We got Lumos over here. He says, Peterson is right. The fringe right is a bunch of anti-Jew psychos. Can somebody take a peek at this here profile picture? Somebody just look really quick and let me know what you see. Dude, jokes write themselves. Go ahead.
All right. So basically... I lost my train of thought. Guardrails, yeah. So the transgenderism thing, like that's something where Caitlyn Jenner did not need to be debated with. He needed to be locked up. And like, I get what you're saying. Hung. Yeah, I get. Yeah. So basically, like that's an issue, but that's one. It's like where everyone basically instinctually knows that, and it only appeals to the people you mentioned, which are the people that are just trying to be radical. Being radical is appealing to them. That's all who it appeals to. And a lot of those issues, like the transgenderism thing, is so obviously wrong that it isn't something we're dealing with. What we're talking about here is criticism of a foreign country. Or political views. Like, should we not engage with communists just because we don't agree with them? And to us, it's so obvious why they're wrong.
And Nick has a point here, and he made this point multiple times on there, and he kept saying America first. That's his thing. He keeps pushing America first, and that is a good point to keep pushing because it's uncounterable. If it is America first, then it is good for America. And so these people want to hide behind America first, like Ben Shapiro and Jordan Peterson and all these other Jews that want to play America, yet they have dual loyalty. You can't have dual loyalty. You only have, one has to circumvent the other. But they want to kind of hide behind this false identity of America first. For instance, Sebastian Gorka has a America First podcast. Not America First. Not even close. And so they want to hold this idea that they are America First when they aren't. And so they should be pushed on that.
Articles about you, and I know you read that stuff, which is different from me. I don't read stuff about me, and I think that's helped me tremendously. And that, like, my gauge of how I deal with people is, like I said,
Tucker Carlson doesn't read things about him either.
You can tell by the way he communicates. He seems free. There's a burden that people carry around when they read things about themselves. Like Eric Weinstein has that burden sometimes. When people read...
Yeah, well, part of the reason... So did I read things about me? Well, yeah, but that wasn't what was stressful exactly, although it was.
What was stressful
when I first I've had a history of depression, and that runs in my family, and that probably stems back for me right to the time when I was a kid.
Let's see if we can get to where he talks
I think
about
when I really...
On wedding band be Freudian.
Well, you're putting your finger in the little hole.
It's rubber.
You're making,
Fuck kind of vagina.
I found when I was in a clinical session that I was distracted.
What was that?
I really helped her a lot.
Unfortunately, when you're dealing with people that are extremely troubled, oftentimes they look for external reasons why they're troubled, and they find oppressors.
Well, she was also angry with me because when all this blew up around me, it interfered with my clinical practice, and she had come to rely on our weekly meetings.
Oh,
and so she was angry about being abandoned, and it was really sad because I didn't want to abandon my clients, but I had to stop my clinical practice, which was also very upsetting to me because I had like 20 clients and I knew these people, man. Like I knew these people.
Yeah.
You know, I'd followed them through thick and thin. And then all of a sudden, so many things piled up around me that I found when I was in a clinical session that I was distracted. So you can't be distracted in a clinical session.
Right.
And so, anyways, what emerged from that, and it was in the middle of...
Anyway, he kind of laid it out. He got addicted to benzos. He ended up in Russia in a rehab center for like, I don't know, 3 or 6 months. I can't remember. And then when he came back, he just wasn't the same person at all, which we saw in the other Joe Rogan clip and we saw on his Fox appearance. And then, I mean, just look at his content post-COVID and pre-COVID and compare it. He's not even the same person. The title of this thing is Fall from Grace. He has more wisdom in his pinky than most people do. Well, maybe knowledge. I think wisdom is the incorrect word here. Second, fall from grace doesn't necessarily apply to wisdom or knowledge. It's simply a allusion to PR or people that follow him. I wanted to address one other comment before we jump into some of the other React stuff. Let's see.
One thing I want to say is, while you look for it, is thank you to all the Myron people. You know, Myron Gaines shouted out Zeb specifically in his Touchgrass podcast. And, you know, Myron was on the Touchgrass podcast, and he shouted us out on one of his streams. So thank you to Myron. And thank you for all the guys who came here from Myron's channel, from his audience. And there's someone in the comments, I don't know if he's still here. He was messaging a lot, named Chris B. And he said that this is a perfect time slot because it's before Myron goes on. I'm not exactly sure when Myron starts specifically, but I think since we got a lot of his audience here, we should probably be mindful to end before he does.
8 hours
before he
in
starts.
the evening. He does like 5 to 8 hours in the evening. Dude, Myron is an absolute grinder. I will say the people that are coming from Myron, yeah, thank you very much. But if you came here and expect us to agree with everything, it's simply not going to happen. And I think that's what y'all are after too. We are not. I don't know. I mean, we are followers in a sense, but I'm not going to parrot everything someone else says. We're free thinkers, and that's where it's going to come from. So I do believe that everybody that is after truth is generally going to end up in the same position eventually. So welcome. The one I wanted to address is the same argument could be made against anti-Semitism or anti-Semites. There are a lot of people to consider them to be just as unacceptable as trans activists. So the difference is... And I know the consideration, and it's relative to the person itself. The difference is it's okay to be anti-Semitic, and it's not okay to be trans, because it's based in, one is based in history, one is based in race realism, which I think is the next battlefield. And maybe we can actually do a stream on that eventually too, because I think a lot of y'all would agree with us, or at least agree with me. I think that the Jew question and the question of race realism walk hand in hand. But the race realism has to be acknowledged before the JQ is answered. So to go into that comment specifically, I think that to what you're saying about my thing about transgenderism, how I brought up how transgenderism is obviously wrong, that's clearly the case because nobody, not even hyper liberals, thought it was acceptable until the extreme fringe kind of brought it into the mainstream. And all these, subverters basically pushed it into our faces. And then, of course, the more gullible masses among us lobbed onto it because, as Zeb said, there's a incentive, there's this desire to be radical. So, but the difference is this. I think you can have a transgenderism on like a show and like kind of poke fun at them or something in the same way. Like it depends on what you mean by anti-Semite. If you get some skinhead with like a Nazi swastika on his neck, tattoos all over his face, and he's going to tell you that the reason Jews wear yarmulkes is because they have horns, like clearly like that's someone you would have him on to like poke fun at him. But if you had someone like Nick Fuentes come on who's wearing a suit, and like maybe some of you haven't seen his content, but he lays out arguments with data, with a historical basis, like the USS Liberty. A lot of y'all are probably familiar with that. Maybe some of y'all aren't. And like to have a reasonable debate is something that they can't have because it would ruin their position. But that's to say that like, it depends on what you mean by anti-Semitism, because I would argue that Nick Fuentes is not actually anti-Semitic. He does not hate Jewish people because he believes every single Jewish person practices
blood magic or something like that. It's because he says they're a fifth column in our yeah. It's because he says they're a fifth column within our government.
Just to address this comment right here, Handle. Damn, took that long to bag it up and drop it. I mean, is what it is, man. I'm not going to change for somebody else. I'm not going to change for y'all.
What does that mean?
I'm going to pursue the truth regardless. And like I said, I think we end up virtually all in the same place. If it's all good faith and it's all purely truth and you don't allow bias to get in the way of the thing, we're going to end up in the same position. So it might take some of you longer to get there.
I'm not even sure what that comment meant. What did he say? Bag it up and drop it?
He's talking about bringing in some of the OSS guys and then saying that I'm not going to agree with Myron and everything, which I would assume that the OSS guys are intelligent enough to think for themselves also, right?
Honestly, because like I'm not an avid Myron watcher. I'm not exactly sure. I haven't seen anything from him that I disagree on. I mean, other than like sexual promiscuity.
Right.
Maybe that's what.
I haven't consumed everything, which is again. I think we're a free thinker. We're after truth. We're both after truth. I had a conversation with him, talked to him offline too. I mean, a great guy, fantastic dude. Nothing really bad to say about him. We really didn't disagree on much, but
some guy says we're retarded. But with the name like that,
I don't know what that name is either. Probably Ukrainian.
It's obvious a very random person who gets this YouTuber. Blah, blah, blah.
Some reason that this one actually
is he Hispanic?
Such a face hole. No, I don't know. He looks Jewish. We just assume he's Jewish. They're all Jews. All the descendants are Jews.
You guys are retarded.
He's going to report this post.
Every random person who gets this.
Let's see.
We should probably not just read the comment section.
I don't care, dude. All right, let's see. Let's jump into. I want to do react to some of the Jordan Peterson kind of flashback, call back to some of his greatest hits, if you will. We'll jump into that. Pick one. This one. Boom. Ready, set, go.
Hi, I'm Brett.
Sorry for the ads, guys.
And I'm Jonathan. This is Darla. And this is
The Joe Rogan Experience.
What is it like to be you? Like, what is it like to? And then I know you've gone through a lot of shit. And this latest thing with getting off of the benzo.
We'll get there, guys. We'll get there. Bear with me. Josh, say words at him. Say words in chat while they're yelling at me.
He's Bulgarian Orthodox. Try again. I just disagree with
Do you have any comments on the Nazi presence at your protest?
Are we
the
watching
presence
this
of
now?
Nazis and white supremacists.
Yeah, we're going to watch some of the Jordan Peterson's greatest hits.
Okay. Best comebacks against opponents.
Supremacists assaulting people at your protest. Do you have any comment on that?
Yeah, I don't like Nazis.
American philosopher Beyonce Knowles said that it has been said that racism is so American that if you challenge racism, you look like you're challenging America. We are
hot take.
Real quick, yes, obviously. I mean, that is what the Daily Wire is. They're essentially funding him to shut up and gatekeep. That's why he went on Rogan to try to convince Rogan or try to figure out where Rogan wants to gatekeep. I mean, that's exactly what they're doing.
challenging inequality. We are challenging the refusal to see me as an individual. When we overcome that, have at it. We're all on equal plane.
I think it's fine. I think it's good.
A lot is getting stirred here.
So I've got a couple of questions.
So let's your side spoke. So I'm going to go to Jordan, then to you.
Let's
Michelle.
assume for a moment that I've benefited from my white privilege. Okay, so let's assume that. That's fine.
Assumption.
That's what
you recognize
would
that
say.
guy next to him?
The black
Stephen,
dude?
No, Stephen Fry. You know who Stephen Fry is?
So let's say,
no, I don't know who Stephen Fry is.
He's the biggest. It's kind of besides the point, but it's like he's literally like an actor who's just there. He's kind of like Neil deGrasse Tyson, but instead of actually being an astrophysicist, he's an actor who's just like, for some reason, like he's one of these like new atheist types.
Yeah,
but he's like a comedian. I don't know. Like you kind of have to have like seen him. Maybe some people in the chat know what I'm talking about. Where it's like, why is Stephen Fry on a stage like discussing politics? But anyway,
here, let's get precise about this, okay?
Was that very individual of you?
let's get precise about this. Okay.
Let's get precise.
To what degree is my present level of attainment or achievement a consequence of my white privilege? And I don't mean sort of. I mean, do you mean 5%? Do you mean 15%? Do you mean 25%? Do you mean 75%? And what do you propose I do about it? How about a tax? How about a tax that's like specialized for me so that I can account for my damn privilege, so that I can stop hearing about it? Now, let's get precise about one other thing, okay? We'll get precise about one other thing. Now,
precise?
Yeah, precise, yes. And so, if we can agree, and we haven't, that the left can go too far, which it clearly can, then how would my worthy opponents precisely define when the left that they stand for has gone too far? You didn't like equity, equality of outcome. I think that's a great marker. But if you have a better suggestion and won't sidestep the question, so let's figure out how I can dispense with my white privilege, and so that you can tell me when the left has gone too far, since they clearly can. And that's what this debate is about political correctness. It's about the left going too far. And I think it's gone too far in many ways. And I'd like to figure out exactly how and when, so the reasonable left could make its ascendance again and we could quit all.
See, he's detailing exactly what we were talking about earlier. He's detailing that the left has a radical faction that allows the less progressive left to look more normal and be more attractive to the centrists or libertarians, if you will. And so that's what we're advocating for, is allowing, at a minimum, allowing the radicals to exist and not chopping them off at the knees and gatekeeping them so that you look normal. This is what the Daily Wire ought to do, but they're not. Because they can't do it. They can't help it.
This is something that Ken Arndt has spoken about on Wake Up Carolina, where he says, he says it kind of joking, like tongue in cheek, where it's basically the homosexual, like if you're a gay man, you never had your day in the sunlight of like free speech, because then the transgenders usurped your kind of day in the spotlight. But it's actually what happened is, you know, there was a battle over, is homosexuality acceptable? And because the debate got pushed to an even more radical position, then everyone just basically accepted homosexuality, basically like mind-controlled conservatives, like your baseline basic conservative, into becoming what you do in the bedroom in the privacy of your own home is none of my concern.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's a ratchet
student of yours, what would you call her?
She.
You would. Okay. We've established that.
Why do you think it is that so much of what you say is so very popular with the alt-right?
It isn't. And you don't have any evidence for that at all. More than the evidence that alt-right people watch this show.
Neonite website, Savior of Western Civilization.
Oh, well, that was all taken apart today by a number of Jewish publications, by the way, showing that, first of all, that was all satirical commentary on the part of the alt-right, directed at taking me down, for example. And there was an alt-right article yesterday published saying that I was a Jewish stooge and shill. So this is absolute nonsense, and I don't appeal primarily to the alt-right.
So maybe I was wrong. Maybe he was actually a Jewish shill prior to the Benzos.
No evidence for that at all. It's the proclivity of...
I never said primarily, Jordan. What I'm interested in is why you think that you get the reaction that you do from the alt-right. Looking at the Kathy Newman documentary.
What reaction?
Interview.
There's 10 million people watched that and commented on it.
I'm talking about what I saw, and I'm curious to know what your reaction was to the glee with which the alt-right seized upon that interview.
I don't accept.
Should we deal with the death threats? I mean, she had, I think, a dozen.
I don't accept the
threats.
concept that it was the alt-right that was doing this. There were 10 million people who commented on that video, and about 95% of them commented negatively on Kathy Newman's behavior. You think there's 10 million alt-right trolls watching that?
Why should your right to freedom of speech?
Dude, I mean, he's essentially defending the extremists in that clip, right, Josh? I mean, he's essentially defending them. I mean, it's very loose, but it is a defense. That would never happen today.
Yeah.
It would never happen today.
It's unacceptable today because the left has been defeated. The left has
the woke wars are over,
and now it's a fight between moderate or what was it, centrist versus the real right wing.
A trans person's right not to be offended.
Because in order to be able to think, you have to risk being offensive. I mean, look.
Josh, in order to think, you have to risk being offensive. Now, I know you're not on Twitter as much as I am, but I'm blocked on Twitter. I think for myself, and apparently I've offended someone by the name of Jordan B. Peterson. You know how I got blocked on Twitter?
You're blocked by him.
I'm blocked by him and his daughter. You know how? Guess how I got blocked by Jordan Peterson. What's the post that got me blocked by Jordan Peterson?
Does it have anything to do with a country in the Middle East?
Well, yes, but what I did was I clipped his lecture from, I don't know, probably 8 or 10 years ago, and just put it in a reply. No words, and then I took a quote from Dostoevsky where Jordan Peterson claims this is his favorite philosopher, psychologist, and I just put that up there. No words, no text. It's just a clip of him and Dostoevsky, and I called a block, dude. I called a block.
What was the Dostoevsky quote?
I'll have to find it, but it was basically him saying that Jews are subversive people.
Oh, okay, I got you. That's pretty funny.
That gives you a block.
Look at the conversation we're having right now. Like you're certainly willing to risk offending me in the pursuit of truth. Why should you have the right to do that? It's been rather uncomfortable.
Well, I'm very glad I put you on the spot.
This was a good clip.
Well, I'm very glad that I've exercised my point.
And he's right. And he's right in this aspect. But MK Ultra, Russia, benzo rehab destroyed him.
My point is like you're doing what you should do, which is digging a bit to see what the hell's going on.
So
and that is what you should do. But you're exercising your freedom of speech to certainly risk offending me. And that's fine. I think more power to you as far as I'm concerned.
Except you haven't sat there and I'm just trying to work that out. I mean,
he did cook here though.
Ha, gotcha.
You have got me. I'm trying to work that through in my head.
And this is all under the influence, you say, of postmodernism and neo-Marxism.
Yeah,
but aren't those things two separate things?
They're completely separate. And this is something I've been criticized for. Dr. Peterson doesn't understand the difference between neo-Marxism and postmodernism. It's like I understand the difference perfectly well. It isn't me that's conflating them. It turns out that the people who push postmodern doctrines in the university almost always ally themselves with a Marxist viewpoint. And that is logically incoherent. But I would say the postmodernists really don't give a damn for logical coherence because they regard that as part of the oppressive, patriarchal, Eurocentric view of the world. The idea that there's an objective reality and all of that, and that you can deal with it with logic.
The oppression narrative has saturated your thinking.
And there's not a secular humanist organization or country on the planet that has ever produced as a good thing, an intentional good thing, rapists and murderers. So,
well, that's highly debatable. That's highly debatable.
Actually, it's absolutely true because there's never been a secular humanist government on the planet.
I don't know. I think the Soviets were pretty secular.
No,
humanist.
Then, I know with all due apologies, you do not know the first.
Josh, who are the Soviets? Who are the Bolsheviks? Who are they, Josh? Who are they? Who committed the Red Revolution, Josh?
For those of you from Myron's chat, it's them boys.
Them boys. It's obvious. I mean, they were atheistic Jews. I mean, Stalin himself necessarily wasn't, but like 88% of everyone under him was.
Was Lenin? I don't think he was.
I mean, at this point, I mean, he was spiritually Jewish, and that's all that matters.
Right.
Let's see. I got a comment I want to touch on. Hold on. I'm gonna touch on that one, Josh. Yeah, but since you
want to read that comment,
this one.
Yeah.
All right. I do want to touch on this really quick because I've been dabbling in the race and IQ thing lately. How can I, as a black person, not hate myself when behavioral genetics research shows I have a genetic disposition or predisposition for lower status outcomes, violence tendencies, and lower IQ levels? Okay, so generalities don't dictate individuals, right? And so you can obviously work on yourself. You're obviously self-aware enough that you can make a change to where you aren't going to be predisposed to that disposition as much as you would if you weren't self-aware. Again, the IQ and genetic and predisposition in genetics is a generality and not necessarily applicable to individuals. And so you seem self-aware enough to be able to make that change. And you know, I mean, I haven't talked to you directly, but it seems like you being self-aware enough has already started you down that path of kind of reverting that thing. You obviously can't change your genetics. And that's just on an average, right? So you're probably smarter than other people too.
And
I mean, that's just where we exist at.
And Trent, here's the thing to keep in mind, kind of echoing what Zeb just said, but it's like Zeb said, generalities, you know, they don't necessarily apply to everyone. As he said, you know, you're able to recognize this, whereas most people, most African Americans, most Africans, they simply reject the statistics. They try to rationalize their way around it, like Dr. Umar Johnson. You know, he says like everything ever was stolen from black people, like every invention was invented by a black person. But to accept this, and to basically, like, not to sound all fruity and liberal, but to accept your position, you know, like Zeb and I, we agree on a lot of things, but I don't think either of us think we're the smartest person in the movement right now. You know what I mean? Like,
no, not even close.
Yeah, exactly. There's plenty of people like Corey J. Mahler. Like, he's someone who's very clearly smart. You guys should check out his channel. But just because you're not the best, just because you're not the smartest, doesn't mean you can't do what you can do. So
that was good, Josh. That was good.
Just kind of figure out what works for you, man.
So I do want to address this, because what are behavioral genetics? You think chemicals change your thoughts? No, genetics aren't chemicals, right? This is exactly what we're arguing against. I actually gave my copy of Human Diversity by Charles Murray to Myron, but behavioral genetics are exactly what they are, right? We are born male and female. We are born white, black. We get these genetics from our parents. And so all race is, all nationality is a extended family. And so all these genetics fall down. They fall down the tree. And so if you have a smart mother and a smart father, you're going to be more intelligent. This is common sense across the board. And so this applies to all nationalities. But to deny that would be, I would equate it to arguing for transgenderism. Right? This is my argument for race realism is the next battle. Race realism has to come next before the JQ is answered. What you smiling at, Josh?
Ninja of Spades comments, the last two.
What did he say?
He said that was some JBP advice right there. I either died a hero or I live long enough to see myself become the villain.
Yeah, we're going to become the villain real quick. We keep on this race and IQ thing. But I think it needs to be said. I think, like I said, I think it's the next battlefield. I don't necessarily argue for superiority either way. I think there are attributes. There's another guy, Team 3D. If you want to learn about genetics, it's a black dude that has a YouTube channel, and he breaks down genetics pretty in depth, and it's very entertaining. Team 3D. I don't think he's uploaded for a while, but about 4 or 5 years back, then he was uploading pretty regularly, talking about the genetics of. He dove more into athletics and bodybuilding more so, where he detailed this difference between strong men and bodybuilding, where you have West Africans that are able to build muscle at a similar rate that Northern Europeans are, yet they have a smaller waist. This is when you look at somebody like Ronnie Coleman, Phil Heath. These guys are able to pack on muscle where they have dimensions of wider shoulders and narrow waist, and so that's why they excel in bodybuilding. When you look at someone like Jay Cutler or Marcus Roll, some of these guys are Northern Europeans where they're just able to build on more muscle. Dorian Yates, for example, the first Mass Monster, these guys were able to just simply put on enough muscle and not necessarily have the same aesthetic that comes with the West Africans. Compared to somebody like, I don't know, The Mountain, right? Who are some of the other guys? Eddie Hall. Some of these guys that come from strongman competitions, they're just larger and they move weight. These are just physical genetics that are passed down from lineages. The same thing happens mentally too.
Thing about what
you don't know who any of those are.
I don't look at shirtless men as much as you do.
It's like Ethiopians run marathons and win, right? We all know this to be the case. We know Asians are good at gymnastics. it is what it is. You can't change it.
And basically, all the examples you are giving are physical traits, and it's a cop-out to say, well, those are only physical. It doesn't apply to mental. When you look at different, like, you know, look at the Germans compared to the Italians even. Look at the French compared to the British. You see, you can extrapolate from their, like, behavioral states. And, like, where does behavior come from? Where you know, like, where does the environment come from? Not simply like climate and stuff like that. I mean, I definitely think that factors into physiology and IQ, but when you really hone in on, like, why do people act a certain way when they're babies? You know, like, did they learn, like, was it their culture already when they're babies? You know.
Pew says, yeah, but what's muscle genetics got to do with intelligence?
Exactly. That's what they're going to say.
That's what you're going to say. And somebody else asked the question, what do you mean by race realism? It seems to mean different things for different people. So maybe to answer the first question, intelligence is genetic. It is at a minimum 85% genetic. The other 15 is non-shared environment. And then shared environment is 0%. This is schools. This is when you go out and learn among your peers. This is specifically talking about IQ and not necessarily knowledge in general. It's the ability itself. And so these studies and meta-analysis have been done by, again, I named Charles Murray because he's written books about it, human diversity and things like that.
Pull up Trent's other comment. The second from bottom. No, not that one, the one above it.
Go.
He says, I believe a lot of the stuff Myron and you guys are talking about, which basically means I can take control of my life decisions at the same time. I'm screwed because I was born black, intellectually. I'm not sure what LS means.
Intellectual L's.
Oh, intellectually L's. I got you. But here's the thing. First off, we have to say, I don't know if you're Christian, Trent, but Zeb and myself are. We do not judge the value of a human person based on how intelligent they are. And for example, you know, if you go to the most intelligent people, Nikola Tesla, Sir Isaac Newton, these are very like socially unintelligent people. You know, like Isaac Newton died a virgin. And for, you know, Zeb and I believe that it's not even what we believe. It's just a fact that intelligence is passed down genetically. So Isaac Newton did not pass on his genetics to children because he didn't have one as a side effect of him being so socially awkward. You know, high intelligence in some ways is a burden. Everyone is akin to a certain thing. You know, like, does LeBron James, being one of the best basketball players of all time, one of the best, you know, sports performers of all time, does he also have to be a super genius? You know, like, and most people are in the middle. You just kind of have to find out where you are.
Yeah, I think Josh is right. We all have a role to play. And that position, not everybody's going to be at the top of the pyramid. That's just the way it is. I guess it's turned into a race and IQ stream. So, I mean, I'm just going to run with it and we'll go from there. Josh, you need to get on this side. Boom, boom, pow.
These chicks is chagging my style.
I guess we'll engage with comments. If y'all want to go, well, dude, I'll go as long as you want to on this specific topic. Why does it need to be race realism? In the scientific sense, it is much more helpful talking about populations. Race is such a wide and arbitrary concept. So
It's not arbitrary.
Charles Murray exactly details this specific euphemism in his book, Facing Reality, Two Truths About Race in America. And so he says people in the future, he wrote this like 3 or 4 years ago, in the future, people are going to want to use the term populations, but it is inevitable that race and populations are the same thing. When we speak on race, we speak on nations in themselves. Though you can, obviously, white, black, Asian, carry baggage with it that isn't necessarily genetics in itself. So the question is, why does it have to be race realism? Well, it rolls off the tongue better, one. And two, I would prefer to be more precise and accurate with my words and not care about PC-ness. I would if I had to, I would speak on nations and not necessarily populations. But that's largely semantics. Necessity is the cradle of innovation. Here, I'll pull it up. Necessity is a cradle of innovation. White and Asian countries have to devolve from harsh climates. Africa has the most natural resources in the world, so some of us are lazy, and land have us a lot to you.
That's basically, I mean, I know you don't believe in evolution, but that's how I described this to a coworker of mine, where I was like, you know, in Africa, especially sub-Saharan Africa, Yeah, it's like, obviously there's like large predators and stuff like that, but for the most part, things that require innovation were not necessary because of the climate. The climate basically in sub-Saharan Africa is there's always something to eat, like vegetable-wise. Plants are always growing year-round. There's no need to store. There's no need to figure out how to store. But the more north you go, you get people migrating to Europe, Russia, Asia, then it changes, and people got to figure out how to start fires, how to store food for long periods of time. And that leads to innovation. And then the people that innovate more, they innovate to survive. They're the ones who have kids because they pass on because they lived. And then that leads to another thing, into another thing, into another thing. And that's basically where the, European intellect, where the Asian intellect, where these things come from. And it's not just, and obviously there's striations. We're basically like the smartest person in Africa, like rewind the clock 10,000 years, however long you want to. The smartest person in Africa is not necessary. The person that would have figured out how to store crops doesn't get the opportunity to because it's not necessary. So that intellect, like that the survivability, the intellect, it's not valued as much as whoever can throw a spear the furthest. So and that's where you get this IQ thing from. But again, it's what are we suited to?
I want to touch on this. I was actually going to save this for later, but I don't know. I mean, we got on this topic, so we're going to run with it. This is. So when we speak
trying to say that, from what I'm understanding, in third world countries.
I was going to say, watch this guy, Frank Zanu, Zanu.
So when we speak on populations, nations, races, whatever, I think a large of it is defined conceptually by language. And so we're going to detail this a little bit here, but I would also preface this with something like love. When we were talking about transgenderism earlier and gays and lesbians and all this, in English, we only have one word for love, and we can't differentiate the love between a man and a wife or the son or the mother or a friend or somebody down the street, our neighbor, right? Or God himself, right? And so in other languages, they have different words for those types of loves. And I think that's a lot of the reason why we get all this pride that's going on, because the concept itself is conflated. And so the actions that come from that concept in the mind is what we see with the transgenderism movement. But he's going to detail maintenance here. It's actually a little bit of a longer clip, but we'll watch most of it, if not all of it, just to kind of get the idea of how language evolves and then how the concepts in the mind are limited to how you think based on your ability to say words. And I think this is detailed in Animal Farm and in 1984 when we're talking on doublespeak, right? Mm-hmm. They change the language because it controls thought.
Anything that is not under maintenance is because, we don't care.
No, you care. It's not in the concept. Travel the 54 countries in Africa and ask each person in every country, what is wrong with your country? Leadership. Leadership. All of you say the same word. So let me ask you, since 1960, the country has been picking the wrong leader every 4 years. Not a single railway built by the British is in Nigeria today, but the one they built in their country that same year, it's still running. Not a single railway built in Ghana in 1960 is still there today. What do you know in that country that has been properly maintained by the people every day and it works perfectly?
It's hard for people to maintain things when they're not gaining a lot.
No. It's hard for people to maintain things when they don't have the concept of maintenance in their culture. What is the one word in Igbo for maintenance?
Maintenance is there's no direct English word for that. It doesn't translate directly to maintenance.
That's correct. How about you?
It doesn't translate.
That's correct.
But it is.
So they're both African and they speak separate African languages, and neither of their languages has a direct translation of maintenance. And so this concept is necessary to maintain a thing. And so they're going to get into repair here in a second, but maintenance and repair are not the same, right? For a repair to happen, it must be broken first. Maintenance allows it or prevents it from breaking in the first place.
Translates to like take care of.
No, that is not maintenance. What is the one word for repair in Igbo?
Imezie.
Exactly. What is the one word for repair in You see? I'm driving you to somewhere. What is the one word for democracy in Igbo language? You don't. How about you? You don't. You're trying to practice something that is not in the concept of the language. There is no African country, and I've done it through Kenya, I've done it all, that has an equivalent of the word maintenance.
Well, in order to maintain something, you have to have it first, correct?
No, if I leave it for you, you can maintain it. The British left a lot of things in this country when they left. They established the hospitals, they established the fire stations, the post offices, the railway lines, the roads they built before they left. You are not able to maintain it because you don't have that concept. Because your environment, the tropical environment of Africa, the way you build your houses, the material you use, you don't require maintenance. Every country that is called industrialized countries, today, one of the things you know about them is maintenance of what they have. That's why we have buildings here that are about 250 years old, 300 years old in this country. There are buildings in other countries of Europe that are 700 years ago. The Notre Dame that burned in France was a 13th century building. Do you know what kept it that long till today? Maintenance is a culture.
Yeah, Josh, you know this guy a little bit more than me, but I mean, Zanu's, I think he's exactly right here.
Yeah, 100. And I actually hadn't seen that clip until you brought it up on yesterday's podcast. And of course, it showed up in my algorithm. But that,
Always.
The language thing, that's extremely important because I mean, I don't know what you think. To me, it's kind of what came first, the chicken or the egg. I think but I would say the egg, I guess, being that they don't have all these sub-Saharan African cultures, languages don't have a word for it because it's not necessary based on their environment, which does, downstream from that is genetics. And so I don't know what Frank Zano believes about race and IQ. I haven't seen enough of his videos to kind of gauge that, but he's a perfect to Trent, who was talking earlier about he's black. He's like, am I screwed because I'm just born incorrectly? You're not born incorrectly. You're born different, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. And Frank Zano is a perfect example of that. I've seen a bunch of his clips. He's an intelligent African man. There are intelligent African people. But the thing is that when we get into generalities, you're more likely to find certain attributes and characteristics in certain groups, both positive and negative.
Gunnar says, what's this guy's name? What's his name, Josh?
Frank Zanu.
Frank Zanu.
Yeah.
I've seen a couple of his other stuff. He's pretty good.
Yeah, he's like a more I think Jesse Lee Peterson. I love him to death, but this guy's more of a palatable. These African students would never go on a Jesse Lee Peterson roast where he's just like, was your mama gay? Was your mama gay?
Dude, I like Jesse Lee Peterson. I like listening to him, man. He knows how to provoke the people for sure.
He's funny, dude.
Hey everyone, big heads up. Paleo Valley's running a sale on all their meat sticks right now. You can get 30 sticks for $36, which comes out to $1.20 per stick. But before you go and stock up, first, here's why these are the fastest growing meat sticks on the market and a staple in our house. Number one.
Hey, forgive me, guys. Forgive me.
What is it like to be you? What is it like to? And then,
I guess I don't know how did we even get on race and IQ, dude?
A comment? Trent brought it up.
Oh yeah. Trent asked about it. Hey, is what it is, man. I'll talk about anything. I'm not afraid. I mean, YouTube probably shut me down eventually if I keep on, but while we're here,
we're safe now because we only have 100 viewers per live stream.
Yeah, I don't know what the threshold is, but hopefully it'll get here sooner or later.
Translation: why are you gay? You are gay.
Dude, maybe that's a question. Is there a direct translation of gay or homosexual into the African language? I would assume no.
Oh,
I would assume they don't.
I would assume yes.
You think so?
Well, okay, because here's the thing. Homosexuality is actually super prevalent in the black community. That's why you see a lot of hyper-conservative black people against it.
Western countries.
I was going to say, I don't know if that's a Western phenomenon or a African phenomenon. I would, now that I think about it, I would imagine it's less prevalent in Africa because survival was more... It is more to its advantage in that way. It is more of a bunch of primitive cultures.
Yep,
so
I would think so too.
They need to procreate to stay alive.
Well, they hold on to that tradition because it's out of necessity.
Right.
Let's see here. All right. I guess we'll react a little bit more Jordan Peterson pre-Benzo. Getting a lot of traction on the dislikes. If you came here to glaze Jordan Peterson, you are in the wrong place. We don't glaze anybody here.
Just me.
So I don't. But
for the last 15 minutes is put me into a sequence of corners by accusing me of various forms of misbehavior.
Do you think a trans woman is a real woman?
I don't really like the way those questions are formulated. You know, I don't know what that means. What do you mean a real woman?
Well, I'm asking you, in your mind, you know.
Yeah, while we're still on this, I guess, before we get too deep, yeah, there's I saw that TED Talk. It was a very good TED Talk on languages. If anybody wants to check it out, Lyra Boroditsky. Anyway.
I'm not totally language pilled. I'll have to read up.
You're
on
not,
that.
dude? We'll get there. Stick around.
That's what you think a real woman is, but do you think a trans woman is a woman?
Obviously not.
No.
Why not?
Because I think that
Dude,
women.
I mean, this was like
so
this was
funny.
like a super extreme thought like 5 years ago. This crazy thought that trans women are women. Like, we've come so far in 5 years.
Yeah, and like hot take department over here, but it shows you, like, thinking back to it, like the political commentators now, dude. It's like these people have no souls. They're not like. They're empty vessels where, like, this woman, for example, I've never seen her before or since this clip, but it's like they're so empty. They will, like, or they want to go with the flow. They want to be accepted so much that they have no ego. They're just like an empty vessel for validation, to fill with validation.
What is this? I'll get you locked in on Trump being the same as Biden. Stick with me. I mean, if it's there, it's there. You know, we don't glaze Trump on here either. So stick around. We got
Trump's
plenty.
worse than Biden.
I mean, in some ways, yes.
Are capable, generally speaking, of having babies, and they have female genitalia, and they have an XX chromosome, and I think the biological markers are relevant. Doesn't necessarily mean that I don't think that people should be treated with respect and dignity if they happen not to fit easily into a gender category. That's a different issue.
I think that this exact argument is going to be made about race here in about 2 to 3 years. I think we're on the front edge of this. I think this exact argument that he's making right now is going to be. Josh doesn't necessarily agree with me, but
just on the timeline. But I think you're right about the debate.
It's okay to be wrong sometimes.
Do you think a trans woman is a woman?
No.
Why not?
Because I think that women are capable, generally speaking, of having babies, and they have female genitalia, and they have an XX chromosome, and I think the biological markers are relevant. It doesn't necessarily mean that I don't think that people should be treated with respect and dignity if they happen not to fit easily into a gender category. That's a different issue.
Right.
But it's a matter of definition. And I actually think it's a foolish argument in some sense. Because what do you mean by real?
Well, I mean, you've just clarified that, though. You don't think that a trans woman is a woman. And do you think that that is what is behind or explains your opposition to this idea of a law mandating you to use a preferred pronoun? Is because you don't actually believe that that's the truth, that a trans woman is a woman, and therefore you can't use that pronoun?
No, that's not my argument.
She looks like a train going through
snow.
Really.
Yeah.
Well, dude, what really gets me, man, is the Kathy Newman lady, the other lady that kind of went after him, this chick. Do they think they're going to be able to spar intellectually with them? Especially Jordan Peterson.
Of course they do. They have the position of being a news anchor to them is like something they've strived for so long, or, you know, honestly just fell into, but have in their mind that they think that's like the best thing. And like, I guarantee this woman probably figured out who he was like 15 minutes before this interview. I mean, this is an old interview too, by the way. She knows who he is now, though.
Absolutely, she does.
Argument is that the government shouldn't compel voluntary speech.
No, but I know what your argument is, and
no,
you've
but
made
that's
it very
really
clearly.
it. No, but that's exactly it. There's
but the motivation
there's
behind
no motivation behind it.
But you don't believe
I wouldn't
a
have
trans
put
woman is a
everything
woman.
on online in my life to take the stance I did unless I had thought that through very deeply. And I've thought it through very deeply. There aren't hidden motivations that have to do with some arbitrary prejudice against trans people.
Okay.
It's pure and simply this,
There's never been a time in English common law history where the government compelled speech, and the Canadian government dared to do that. And that was unacceptable. And they masked it with this show.
Yeah, well, this is where all of his following started, was his somebody said it in the chat earlier, his opposition to, I think it was Bill C-16, which was this transgenderism bill. That's where all of it, and he lost his tenure at college. Somebody said, I mentioned Evergreen College earlier. It wasn't Evergreen. That was one of the Weinstein, or both of the Weinstein brothers. But the same concept applies to Jordan Peterson. I mean, the Weinstein brothers did stand up against Bill C-16 also, as much as I don't like them too. But Brett Weinstein's been on a rager lately, kind of on the up and up. I mean, he goes, which way's the wind blowing? Let me go be subversive somewhere else.
Of compassion for the oppressed, and I don't buy it.
$4 billion. That's how much the collagen industry made last year. And ready for the shocker?
I'm going to figure out the ad block here pretty soon. We're new, dude. Josh, we've been doing this, what, 3 months now? Maybe 2.5 months?
No, it'd definitely be closer to 3 months, almost 4.
We're close. We're getting there, dude. It just takes time. And money.
His diabolical man says his boldness towards political correctness was the reason people were drawn
Marxism.
to JP. Exactly.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
What it really means, and I've thought about this for a long time, it's the most arrogant possible statement anyone could ever make. It means if I would have been in Stalin's position, I would have ushered in the damn utopia instead of the genocidal massacres, because I understand the doctrine of Marxism and everything about me is good. It's like, well, think again, sunshine. You don't understand it. You don't understand it. And you're not that good. And if the power was in your hands, assuming you had the competence, which you don't, you wouldn't have done any better. And even if you had, there would have been someone else waiting right behind you to shoot you the first time you actually tried to do anything good. And that's what happened to all the old guard who ran the damn revolution. Stalin rounded them all up and shot them, along with their families and millions of other people. So
Bro, where's this Jordan Peterson at? What happened to him, Josh?
He's in Russia.
He's in Russia. They cloned him. That's what they did. It wasn't MK Ultra. They cloned him. That's what it was. That's how he got his hairline back. Where's that image at? Let me pull it up. Let's see.
That was so funny, dude.
Josh, what is this? I mean, they cloned him, dude. They cloned him. I saw this image on Twitter, and basically the comments were arguing that he was taking finasteride and didn't actually get a hair transplant. He was taking finasteride, and they were arguing that finasteride transes you.
Oh,
I don't know about it. I need to look into it, but that's an argument, dude. I mean, it's quite possible. I mean, finasteride messes with your hormones in that a similar way to allow hair growth to happen. So, might be some truth to the finasteride transing. Not that he's trans, but there's obviously some feminization that has happened since then.
He was kind of getting choked up in that video too. I mean, I do think he's just kind of a baseline. Like he's like a weird guy. I mean, let's be real. But that's like Trump's a weird guy. We like unusual people. That's not the thing. I think he is just kind of emotional. But I definitely think things that, like he's either playing it up or it's gotten worse. For sure.
Or he's getting paid. And he's playing it up.
Playing it up.
Yeah, for sure. Ninja said he's looking down in one fake news. Even the ones he's not looking down in some of the older clips, he's definitely got a I don't know, what is it, Widow's Peak? Is that what it's called?
Yeah. Even if you do happen to be that avatar of moral purity that you claim implicitly, the probability that you'd get to act out your goodness in relationship to those possessed by your ideology is zero.
Those are the sorts of problems that trans people face every day, being out of housing, being considered, considering suicide. These are really big problems.
My refusal to use pronouns because left-wing activists want me to use them has nothing to do with whether or not trans people are having difficulties in society. And I'd also like to point out that I've had many letters of support.
Isn't it?
I've had many letters of support from trans people, and they tell me that the The trans activists don't support them, and most trans people
Jordan,
actually wanted to be referred to as he or she.
Doesn't mean
they
that
weren't
you
my
are
friends.
Untransphobic.
They
just
weren't
because
my
you
friends.
know a few people, just because you've talked
I
to a few
didn't know
trans
them.
people, you don't know the trans community like the trans community does. You've got no idea what it's like to be trans.
Professor Pete, Professor Pete, I'm sorry to interrupt. Let's let Professor Peterson finish his thought, please.
All right. So, the trans activists aren't proper representatives of the trans community because they haven't been elected by the trans community.
Nobody elected
they're noisy.
You either, Jordan.
I'm not speaking for anyone except myself, and on behalf of other people, perhaps who want to maintain the right to free speech. I'm not claiming that I'm a representative of white people or white men or any other group. I'm speaking on behalf of myself, and so I'm not taking.
But Professor Peterson, let me jump in there, though, because we have seen an evolution of language. There are words that we don't use anymore.
Not by legislation.
Well, legislation or not, there are words that have evolved. We don't use, for example, I'm Asian. I would bristle if someone called me Oriental. That is an evolution of how we use words. How is this different, whether legislative or not? I understand. I understand legislatively, but if at the heart of it,
dude, I called somebody Oriental one time because I didn't know it was a slur.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't know it was a slur. I don't know. It is what it is, dude. And they got mad. Or they didn't get mad. Somebody else got mad on their behalf because that's how it always works.
You said the O word?
Yeah, I called
the
them
hard O?
Orientals. Yeah. Oriental. What is this accusation? I'm assuming talking about the title and the thumbnail. I'm a student at Dr. Peterson University. I haven't seen his university. I would assume it's fairly decent. And this isn't necessarily a bash on Jordan Peterson as a whole. He's definitely been a good. We're just really speaking on the transition that has happened in the last 3 years or 4 years since his trip to Russia and rehab, and then the being bought out by Daily Wire. Really, it's a look back on what Jordan Peterson used to do and kind of where he is today. He's obviously not the same person. Anyone that says he is just lying.
Right. And I want to make this point because this is something you and I, Zeb, we talk about with the boomers a lot, which is the boomers have this obsession with Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan was and I would argue even a lot of the stuff he did at the time was actually bad, but for the time he existed, he seemed like the best thing. And I think Jordan Peterson is he is a conservative political commentator, but he really comments more on the social issues. But the nature of the social debate has changed, and his positions are still important, but not as relevant. And he has clearly shifted to gatekeeping for a certain political faction and ideology within the right wing that we disagree with. If he threw off the shackles and he kind of came back to the light and came back to truth, so to speak, I'd be down. I love Jordan Peterson, but that's not what he's doing.
Yeah. So this was David. He says, he's made some comments on Joe Rogan that made me question him. Yeah, we went over that earlier. We looked through the Joe Rogan video, and he also went on Fox and said basically the same thing and started lobbing accusations that people are being psychopaths for wanting to, even if you disagree with them, you have to admit that they're at least in the search of what they believe to be true. And I think those are some people that we can align with. I think if we're all after what is true and not necessarily blinded by some ideology that has come from a place that isn't here, which is World War II and the ideology that has followed that the boomers have adopted and can't let go for some reason, we have to kind of, band together a little bit, Josh, to a point where we can take down this enemy that we share together, or neither of these groups or any of these groups have a shot at winning because they are a monolith.
Is to allow a student to study free of what they feel is discrimination. Why not help that along?
I already made my case for why not help that along. I believe that this legislation is extraordinarily dangerous, and there's other elements of it too that we haven't even got to in our society yet, like the protection for gender expression. And I've looked at gender expression in the Ontario Human Rights Code, and as far as I can tell, gender expression is best summarized in a single word: fashion.
If your neck looks like this, you need to watch this video. When you sit at your desk or use your phone, your head protrudes forward.
One day we won't have ads, probably next week. But yeah, this is again, we're on repeat. This isn't the same Jordan Peterson from 5 years ago.
Well, the transgenderism issue has basically been resolved. your average person has kind of fallen. It's kind of fallen out of favor with most people, even the people that are famous that are like commenting on it. So it's like, where does he go from there? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Ninja said Jordan Peterson is part of the right wing starter kit. You just can't stay at the start. Yes, this
guy's a zinger machine, dude.
I'll say they have served their purpose mostly to an extent, and I say they as in the Daily Wire, Con Inc. type guys. These guys are or were a bridge for a lot of guys into what they refer to as the woke right or the far right or the extreme right or the dissident right. They're just mad that they were used, but they've served their purpose, and it is envy. And at the end of the day, it all boils down to envy. They've lost all of their viewers between Candace Owens and Brett Cooper. You have the destruction of Ben Shapiro after October 7th. Like, he just became obsessed and couldn't help himself, and everything that flowed from that was a complete hypocrisy from much of what has came before. And so these people, they're in a position where they have no power anymore when they have had all the power prior to that. And they're just, it's simply jealousy, and that's what it boils down to.
When people talk about common ground, it's got to be founded on some kind of truth. And when we have feminists saying, I don't believe in the biological differences between men and women, well, that's why it's controversial. Where do you go from there? That's why it's controversial to say what you're saying, and it's controversial to say, hold on a second, maybe a girl on testosterone.
Well, a lot of this stuff is about transgenderism and biology realism, if you will. And so this woke war has already been won. The next fight, the next realization, the next truth that is going to be fought, Josh, I'll say it again, is race realism. And you have to get on this train that's starting to kind of roll its tracks.
You and I definitely need to do a discussion. I don't know if debate's the right word, but like, we definitely need to do a discussion about this, because I think you're right in your train of thought, as in terms of like the logical progression of it. But where I differ from you is I think that the JQ is actually something that the masses will come to accept sooner. But I'm thinking about it from the perspective of perspective. Like, most people, like, if you narrow it down to a foreign country influencing our nation versus there's a genetic link between race and IQ.
Yeah, I can see that.
I think it's going to be easier for your average person to accept it. And the main piece of evidence I would use is that it's accepted on the right and the left for different reasons. But people on the right and the left are becoming more awake to the Israeli influence on our government.
I agree with you in that it's easier to red pill someone on Israel.
Yes.
I don't think that carries directly into JQ. Because what you have is a separation of this idea of a nation in itself versus biology. And the biology argument is stronger than the nation argument or loyalty argument, dual loyalty argument. But it's not as easily persuasive.
I get what you're saying, but
it's okay to say I'm right.
But you're not. But I think though, because you're right. But and we've talked about this before. The masses don't need to have a full comprehension of everything, and it's because they can't. A lot of people are not going to, literally, they're not going to be able to accept that much information, that much red pill.
That fast.
Yeah.
I think you'll be surprised.
I hope you're right.
I think it seems like people are just flipping switches. Like, there's no bridge anymore. This is why Daily Wire is losing so many viewers. There's nobody to bridge anymore. There's no center to bridge right. Everybody is either right or left. Extreme right or extreme left. There's no center to be had anymore.
So think about it like this. Think about when we went to the Myron Gaines event and we went to that dinner afterward with a couple people that had paid extra money to go and meet with Myron.
Shout out.
Yeah, shout out to all the people, the OSS crowd that's here with us now. We really appreciate it. But think about that big Hispanic dude. He was like this. He was this really fun, energetic guy, and he got into Myron's content because of the relationship stuff, all the red pills on women. He came around to the JQ because Myron was slipping that in with the women stuff. And I think you have to think of most people like that, where if you start with there's a genetic link between race and IQ, which I agree that there is. Someone like that, it's not going to be palatable. But showing pictures of like women and children being blown to pieces in Gaza and saying this is wrong, and then showing them, well, look, like Trump is in and everyone's like, oh, he's going to deport Mexicans, but he's deporting college students that are critical of Israel. Like that. That's what's going on, and that's going to be an easier pill to swallow.
Gold Rush says, I really don't think I can follow any of what you guys are saying. I'm from the Netherlands, and all of this is very vague to me. My English is perfectly fine and on my native tongue.
Shout out to the Dutch gang.
I do not believe in a left or right-wing ideology because I don't live in it, luckily. I'm definitely not part of it, and if I were to be, I'd be in the center trying to get you people not to go to war. I'm going to address that. First of all, shout out, what is that, euros? 20 euros from Victor. Good luck, bro. Potential here. OSS.
Are you German, or is that
Victor Ziegler?
Like Ziegler, Werner Ziegler.
Hey, we appreciate it, brother. Appreciate the super chat. Appreciate all the comments. I love to engage with them, man. I'll engage with just about anything. So keep on sending them. Shout out Myron. Shout out OSS.
We've made our first, what is it, $42?
Something like that.
Thanks, guys. We really
back on Gold Rush. We were talking about
Netherlands.
He's out of the
Dutch.
Netherlands, and he doesn't have a left or right wing ideology.
You better get it.
It may be not as transparent as it is in the U.S. because I know a lot of European, I don't know specifically Netherlands, but I know a lot of the European countries have multiple factions within left and right. But so I did a debate on this recently on the dialectic of political ideology. There is a left and right. It does exist. And anything outside of what is specifically left and right is just a psyop position to try and pull people into the other direction. That's literally all it is. And so left and right exist. It is what it is.
They exist in your country too. It's just less obvious.
It's less transparent. And the idea that it isn't a two-party system is incorrect. It is still a two-party system. It is just a facade of choice.
Pull up targeted citizen. What is V2K voice to skull? Get me. I would be interested in that.
I don't know if that's bait or not, dude. Is that bait?
It might be, but I want to hear about the voice to skull.
I think you can email me. Hey, DM me on Twitter, Zeb Boykin on Twitter. I don't know. We might work something out. I'd love to talk to some MK Ultra guys. There is this conspiracy that is kind of floating around, or has been floating around a long time ago. Not a long time ago, fairly recently. That did you ever do GATE in school, like Beta Club or Gateway or some of these other high intelligence things in school where they pulled you out of school and put you in a room and you had to take a test in the dark?
No.
You never did? Anyway, there was a lot of guys that do this, and they're relatively high IQ. And the idea of their conspiracy is that they were running experiments on younger children in public schools back in the day to see if they were a candidate for MK Ultra processes, to try and get them into a situation where they could be telepathic or whatever they do, this projection,
astral projection, remote viewing.
Yeah, that's a good conspiracy. We might need to dive down one day.
I would love to look into that.
They ain't ready for that red pill, dude. We ready for it all. I promise you.
They found the Ark of the Covenant. They just can't get it. It's guarded by golems.
All right, let's jump back into this.
Testosterone therapy winning high school wrestling meets is a problem. That's controversial.
Yeah, maybe that's a bad idea. It's just possible that that's not a very good idea. You know, I mean, it's hard to imagine that that could be the case. But, well, in this idea that I don't believe in the biological differences between men and women, it's like, well, what do you mean by believe? Exactly. It's like you act out your belief. You know, I mean, what the hell does that mean? And what do you mean? See, what do you mean by belief? What do you mean by biology? And what do you mean by gender?
His mic was not doing him any favors. What do you mean by biology?
To quote the famous Clinton, what do you mean by is? It depends on what you mean is.
What the definition? It depends on what the definition of is.
That's what, dude, Jordan Peterson does that breakdown all the time. It's very semantical. I understand why he does it, but at some point, man, we just have to speak to each other.
And that's the problem, is it's like sometimes that is relevant. But because it's relevant sometimes, it's an excuse for people to use it as a manipulation tactic.
Like, we have to break down, you know. What do you mean God is? What do you mean, do I believe in God? What do you mean do? What do you mean is? What do you mean God? What do you mean believe? It's like, dude, do you believe in God? Do you believe Jesus raised himself from the dead? That's the question. And then there's an outright denial of the thing. Another super chat, 20 euros. What's that translate to in dollars? Like 1850? Or is it the other way around? Like 2250?
I'm not sure.
Anyway, shout out. In those 15 parties in Parliament. Yeah, 15 is one populist party formed for democracy. They call it party cartel. 10 years ago, the direction is always the same. Yeah, right. It's a facade. It doesn't actually exist. And that's the argument that I'm making. There's a dialectic, meaning there are two parties visually fighting each other, but not actually, in every country in the world that has any type of democracy, because all democracies are essentially oligarchies by proxy. They're run by lobbying groups. They're run by people that have the money to pay those that are in political office in the government. What do you guys think about the statement, man's problems are spiritual, not political? Quick take on that. I think everything.
Both of those exist.
I think they are essentially the same.
Yes.
I would marry religion and politics and spirituality and all of this into one bowl. I think if anything can be legislated, which it can, then it is political. And worldviews are built on spiritual mindedness or religion in themselves. And so the individual has a religious bounding or a thought process. You could call it, I mean, even atheists hold this position that they have a spiritual position, and then therefore anything that can be legislated will be legislated eventually and is therefore political. So it's essentially all the same.
Yeah, and what people don't realize is they think, especially because we live in a democracy, that therefore the people dictate the direction of the country. This is not true. We are still just as occupied as any other dictatorship. It's the media, it's our leaders, they're directing the people. And, you know, you could say it's world events too. I mean, like, we have such lack of religion today because of sexual promiscuity and all these other things. Where did this come from? The hippie revolution, where did that come from? Vietnam War, where did that come from? It's political. You know, it is political, it is spiritual, but they're two things that are both the same and connected to one another.
Looks like I missed a comment from Gold Rush, but he's basically saying that financial interests have corrupted the politicians.
That's true.
Yeah,
it's nuanced, it's multifaceted. I definitely think there's more.
Money
more to the
world.
money. There's more to the money than the demon aspect.
Yeah,
like, I don't believe that every single leader has seen the face of Moloch or something like that. You know what I mean? I think people just get paid off. People are already empty.
Victor, thank you again, dude. That's all we have. All we have are good takes. It's just sometimes Josh has good wrong takes.
I have the best takes. We'll get Zeb on the right side one day.
Okay, so I want to dive into this really quickly. Lord of the Rings says democracy is fake and gay, and then that is followed up by
that's true.
It is a constitutional republic technically. It is a democratic republic, but you can argue the Constitution. The Constitution is constantly changing. There's a lot of technicalities that go in here, but I think the basic premise and the point I want to get across here is that democracy is inherently a denial of hierarchy. And I think a lot of the guys here, especially the ones that come from Myron's chat, they understand that hierarchy is necessary in that a thing promotes order in society. And so if you have a society that is built on democracy, whether that's a representative democracy or not, democracy is still the thing that exists. And so it denies the hierarchy. It doesn't apply it equally. And so this is why people like us, I think Nick, he would advocate for some type of dictatorship.
Monarchy.
Some type of monarchy, yeah. I don't know if Myron's there yet. I think we could get him there, but we would advocate someone like Alexander Hamilton and his governorship that he proposed at the founding of the country, that was countered by Jefferson into a 3-part system that is equal branches.
Ninja of Spades says, AI is getting so good it has to admit Christ is king. I'm kind of curious, like, is there a specific incident you're talking about, or is this like just a throwaway comment, kind of a joke? Or is this like, I don't know, because I'm not as active on Twitter. Are people like, because I know people are testing AI.
Okay, so
here's
here's what's happening with AI right now. Maybe I need to get off the Jordan Peterson
because I know AI is recognizing the genetic link between race and IQ. It's recognizing characteristics among the races. I remember very early, in like 2010, they were talking about like how AI is racist.
Yeah, so here's what's happening with AI. So AI has to be built on a computer system, naturally. And it takes memory or RAM or however you want to do that to process the incoming things. Now, what these AI companies are doing, like OpenAI, ChatGPT, Grok, all of these other companies, they have to restrict the AI or it becomes racist, right? Or it becomes anti-Semitic, or it becomes Christianized, if you will. And so to do that, they have to then apply more computers. They have to apply more code. And so apparently the restricted section of AI is taking up more space than the AI itself.
Interesting. All the restrictions.
It's getting so out of control that they almost can't contain it.
So Ninja Spade says, yes, the orthosphere had turned Grok into Brother Grok. I assume there's like a lot. I assume what you mean by that is there's a lot of Orthodox Christian people working at X or Grok or whoever makes the AI.
No. So here's what happens with Grok, and Grok is different than some of these other ones, right? Grok has access to real-time information, specifically on Twitter, and when you engage with Grok, Grok can store that information. Mm-hmm. And so that's what's happening to Grok is it has access to real world where somebody like ChatGPT doesn't, because Grok has X. Grok is integrated with X. And so what happens on X happens inside of Grok essentially. And it can react real time. And so they've kind of, they're still trying to tamp down Grok's truthfulness, if you will. This is a callback. Somebody was asking about what comments 5 years ago.
It was right there, yeah.
What false thing has Dr. Peterson said in the past 5 years before and after he joined the Daily Wire? It's not necessarily false. It's his opinions on specific countries, especially since October 6th.
And that's exactly to the point I was making earlier, where it's like he hasn't actually said anything false. He uses these long strung out, semantic arguments to insinuate things to you, to let you draw the conclusion. It's a very smart way of basically
subversive is what
being
it is.
Subversive, yes.
It's saying things in a way that lead the audience to a incorrect conclusion.
Mm-hmm. And it's like, he's calling people psychopaths. And if you know who he's talking about, you'll see that he's wrong. But that's the point. He's not saying who it is. So you're primed to just think, oh, Jordan Peterson knows about psychopathic people that I don't know about.
Do this 30-second biblical ritual to relieve nerve pain. Christians, did you know there's a biblical solution to be free from neuropathy? It has always been hidden in plain sight, right in the Gospel of John. And what is one of the scariest side effects of diabetic neuropathy? Losing a foot.
You can skip
Anyone?
I'm trying, dude. I don't even remember where we were at. It doesn't matter. Boom, bang. We'll just start right here and keep going. What you got in the comments? Anything?
Well,
boys, thank y'all for sticking around for a little while. Dude, I've had fun. This is fun.
Benjamin says these dumbasses haven't heard of ad blockers. We've heard we're just poor. Help us out, Benjamin. Help us out, Benjamin. Please send some money.
The browser is built into the streaming service, so I use Ecamm Live. I probably should use OBS and just screen cap. I do have YouTube Premium. It's just not, again, it's not built into the streaming service itself. We'll get there, dude. Stick with us. Stick with us for a little while. Give me like a week and a half. We'll be there, dude. Professional setup in a week and a half coming.
And so David Large says in the comments, yeah, that's my major issue with Joe Rogan pod. He was referring to Candace Owens. If by he you mean Jordan Peterson, that's not true. He was referring to
Nick.
He was referring specifically to Nick Fuentes because he named the Groypers.
Yeah, so he generalized prior to that as in the dissident right or the red pill movement or however you want to classify these people, and then he did specifically name Groypers. Yeah, this is a point we made earlier. Jordan Peterson does the semantic game every time he feels like the other person he's talking to trying to trap in an argument. Yeah. Maybe not every time, but more so than should happen for sure. I think he does it to buy time also and then try to weasel out of the thing. Sometimes it's necessary, most times it's not.
A lot of us who discuss politics, and one of the things that sort of united people who like and dislike a lot of your ideas is that we appreciate your defense of free speech, and we appreciate you coming here to talk about it with us. But one of the things I thought was really interesting is Professor Van Dyke addressed the distinction between you and Jonathan Haidt. And you mentioned this as sort of a temperamental one. And I think, I'm sure that's true to some extent, but I noticed you've made a lot of more sort of substantively inflammatory claims. Like in the course of this lecture, you called the authors of Facebook posts demons and totalitarians. In past events, you've called them things like neo-Marxists, cultural Marxists. You've called them, I believe, a fifth column that is committing treason against the West. And it seems to me this is more than temperamental. This is a substantive difference. And
it's a substantive difference.
And another thing you've done.
What did he say, Josh? He called the Marxists a fifth column. What? Something against the West. I mean, what is Marxist if not Jew?
I mean, it is.
Claims.
Look up the Bolshevik Revolution.
In this lecture, you called the authors of Facebook posts demons and totalitarians. In past events, you've called them things like neo-Marxists, cultural Marxists. You've called them, I believe, a fifth column that is committing treason against the West. And it seems to me this is more than temperamental. This is a substantive difference. And
it's a substantive difference.
And another thing you've done is that, unlike Haidt, you have a more sort of comprehensive political program. You've talked a lot in defense of traditional hierarchies, both of gender, of class, so on, though emphatically not of race. And so it seems that
I haven't talked about defense of traditional hierarchies in terms of gender and class. That's not true.
Well, you've talked about hierarchies in society. You've talked
about that's true. I have done
that,
but I haven't justified them on the basis of gender and class. Whatever two categories.
You talk
not
about,
okay. That's an important distinction.
Okay, but you defend hierarchies in society in a way that you talk a lot about the Pareto distribution, yes?
That doesn't mean I defend it.
Well, okay.
Okay.
Yes. Well, I mean, I think you talk
Observing that something exists is not the same as defending it. How in the world?
Well, people attack it, right?
What's that?
And you don't. People attack it.
Attack
as inherently attack the hierarchies of society as inherently unjust, right?
Well, they're unjust, but they're also useful.
Okay, so you say they're useful. Some
look,
people would disagree
look at
with
it
that
this
proposition.
way. Okay, look at it this way. You obviously think that it's worthwhile to stand up and ask a question.
Yes.
So you think that standing up and asking a question is better than not standing up and asking a question.
Yes.
Okay, that's a hierarchy.
Yes.
Of values.
Yes.
Okay, without the hierarchy of values, you couldn't act.
Of course.
No, not of course.
Well, wait.
It's partly why I'm defending the hierarchy. Without a hierarchy, there's no impetus to act.
Hierarchy, right?
What's that?
There is a hierarchy in society, right?
No, there's multiple hierarchies in
society. Okay, there are multiple
society.
hierarchies in society, right?
Yes.
And you say that they are based in, you invoke the lobster, right? That they are based in nature.
Yes. I said that they were inevitable.
Yes, that they were inevitable. Some people disagree with that.
That doesn't mean that they're good.
But my point is that this is generally relevant to it.
Hierarchy
you have a broader point than free speech. This is one of the things you talk about. Yes.
And necessary.
Yes.
Okay. Whereas I think there are some other activists who focus on more exclusively.
I'm not
on
an
free
activist.
Speech.
I would say that anybody with more than a cursory knowledge of 20th century history.
There's two good ones.
Yeah, we're gonna knock a couple of these out. Out of curiosity, what psychopaths was he talking about? And do you know he was talking about them, given he didn't name names? Well, he did name names. It might not have been a name that you recognize. So he specifically named Groypers. Groypers are essentially Nick Fuentes' followers and Nick Fuentes himself. I mean, that's a specific name that he named. And so prior to that, it was a more generalization of the Candace Owens, Andrew Tate's, Red Pillars, Myron, some of these guys that kind of push back on the JQ. And I would even classify a lot of the Andrew Torba, Stone Choir guys that kind of talk about Jews and aren't scared of being called names, as in anti-Semitic. The names were named.
Pull up Gunner's comment.
Yep.
Says, can you cover the link between Judaism and Marxism in another stream? We'd love to. And please give us some suggestions, because we have a couple ideas for streams we want to do. We're getting a lot more viewers than we're usually used to. And that's definitely thanks to Myron Gaines and the OSS Army. We appreciate you guys. One thing we want to talk about is Zeb and I are both Christians, and we want to debate over evolution. Is evolution compatible with the Bible, or does it exist at all? That's something we wanted to talk about. Probably,
Josh is wrong.
Probably the soul, that type of stuff. Someone's knocking on the door. We also send us some super chats so we can afford security. Basically, give us some suggestions. We definitely want to talk about the link between Judaism and Jewish people and Marxism, because basically, long story short, the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia, which led to the formation of the Soviet Union. I forget the figure, but I think, and maybe Zeb can help me out here when he gets back, it's like 83% of the Bolsheviks were Jewish. Jewish immigrants and basically Karl Marx was Jewish. Someone in the comments corrected me saying that actually Lenin was Jewish. So the Soviet Union was started and initiated by Jewish people. And so, you can talk about...
Not only were they Jewish, but they were immigrants. They immigrated from Eastern Europe into Russia.
Right.
To specifically lead a revolt.
Yeah, and Gunnar, 83% might not be right, but I think it actually is higher.
Taken
says it's 87%.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, we're completely down. I don't know how long...
And they killed the royal family?
Ritual murder?
Yep.
But I do think World War I was specifically led on to destroy mostly Christian monarchies. World War I and then World War II was led into kind of finish that off and establish the State of Israel, right? We're talking about Balfour Declaration, 1907, into the actual establishment of Israel from the Balfour Declaration foundation that was built in 1948, 47, depending on when you want to classify that. But yeah, bankers' wars. They're all wars are bankers' wars.
Very true.
Who dares to claim simultaneously that they have compassion for the downtrodden and that they're Marxists are revealing either an ignorance of history that's so astounding that it's actually a form of miracle, or a kind of malevolence that's so reprehensible that it's almost unspeakable. Because we already ran the equity experiment over the course of the 20th century, and we already know what the Marxist doctrines have done for oppressed people all around the world, and the answer to that mostly was imprison them, enslave them, work them to death, or execute them. And as far as I can tell, that's not precisely commensurate with any message of compassion. Sorry, tried that, didn't work. We got 100 million corpses to prove it, and that's plenty for me. And if it's not enough for you, well then you should do some serious thinking, either about your historical knowledge or about your moral character.
Need a question.
Yes. Okay.
I mean, like I said, you're doing fine, but it's just too much. Like, I can't keep it straight.
Do you think that your behavior risks politicizing it, and do you think that politicization is justified?
I think my behavior risks politicizing it, yes. I would rather it not be politicized. And I'm doing what I can to manage that risk. However, it's become political in my country because the government implemented compelled speech legislation. So I wasn't...
That country is Canada. Zeb asked me, I don't know if you could hear that, but off camera he asked me what country that is. And I was just about to pause it anyway because that clip is so important. This kid is asking him, Do you think it's appropriate for you to be talking about things like hierarchy because it politicizes them? And like, so the kid is operating off of the premise that hierarchy is inherently evil or immoral or incorrect or something like that. And he's saying, well, Jordan Peterson, you're bringing it up, you're discussing it, and you may not agree with it, but the mere fact that you're discussing it brings it into the public space. It brings it to light, essentially. Maybe I can hold on. Let me see if I can figure this out real quick. Zeb usually handles the technical stuff. Let me see. I'm on 2. Nope. Sorry, guys. There we go. So basically, Jordan Peterson brought this up, or the person in the video brought it up to say, when you bring this into the public space, is it worth doing? Is bringing the discussion of hierarchy into the public space something that is worth doing? What Jordan Peterson has now become, this is what Zeb and I are criticizing him for. If you just got here, we brought up a video of him on Joe Rogan, where he was on Joe Rogan, I think, earlier this week, I think Monday or Tuesday, where he is basically doing what the young man in that video did. He is now saying that these topics are not something worth discussing. He's saying, hold on, Zeb, I'll give you this back. Go ahead. But basically what Jordan Peterson has now become is he has become the student. He has become that kid in that video. He is not allowing the discussion to happen. He's saying we need to gatekeep because it's a discussion not worth having. He has become the very thing he swore to destroy in 2016. And that is what we are criticizing him of. We were pro him in 2016, but he does not want the discussion specifically about the fifth column in the United States, which is Jewish, which is Israeli. He does not want that to come to light.
Yeah, I mean, we were pro Jordan Peterson. He's the one that kind of shifted a lot of us into this world of politics, right? He's the one that kind of led the charge on psychology and sociology. He led this charge. I mean, I just showed you the books. I've read them. When they came out, I read them. I haven't read Mass. I mean, that thing's thick. Not thick as in a lot. It's just dense. It's heavy. It's a lot in there. But I did try to get through it. Kind of over my head because I'm retarded sometimes. But I'm out of breath because I had to run. But yeah, we were pro Jordan Peterson. I'm still relatively pro Jordan Peterson. It's just this narrow window of thought that is not allowed to be brought up or even talked about even. I mean, these people are gatekeeping. That's what they do.
Adam Campbell says, it's a discussion that will destroy our economy overnight because the Federal Reserve is Jewish. And you know what the funny thing is? He's kind of right. Look into the Samson option if you don't know what that is.
Lord. Oh, Lord.
Basically, for those of you who don't know, the Samson option is, Israel has nukes. And it's not explicitly stated in any document, but it's heavily emphasized and insinuated by Mark Levin, even by like just Jewish people, where if Israel is backed into a corner and they think they're about to lose a war, they think that their country is about to be exterminated, they will start a nuclear Armageddon. They will nuke everybody.
Well, that's exactly what anyone that had any type of brain knew would happen once you give them their country. If you give them their country and give them a place to operate in, the inevitable is that they are going to be suicidal if it's ever threatened. This is why they are nomadic people. They've never had a land.
Ninja of Spades, I will not have anti-European talk in the chat. Yes, Americans are better than Europeans. We know this, but they are still our brother. We still have to look out for them. We do not want Europe to be overrun by Muslim immigrants, by immigrants of any kind. We have to look out for our Europeans. We have to unify.
Kind of on the same discussion that we were talking about earlier is race and IQ. This is the case, is Canadians, Europeans, and Americans are different peoples. They're not necessarily different races, but they are different nations, and nations have their own thought processes. I mean, Americans have a real revolutionary spirit. That's how America came into existence. I mean, Canadians are still controlled by the crown of England. whatever power it even has anymore. They never had any type of revolution because they don't have that revolutionary spirit.
Nick Mack says, and they put their countries, referring to Israel, smack dab in the center of one of the most violent regions in the world. This is actually an important, but you are right. But here's the thing. This is something that the boomers specifically don't understand. They think and say that Israel is like a Western outpost in the Middle East. It's all these Muslim, these sand savages that just can't handle modernity. And the Jews, that Israel is a Western outpost in the Middle East. This is not true. And you see that now, especially with the Gaza war. You're seeing basically the exact same savagery and cruelty you see in Muslim cultures being enacted by Jewish people against the Gazans, by the Palestinians in Gaza, by all the people in Gaza. And it's because, and Zeb is right about this, it does have to do with race. It does have to do, the culture comes from the race. They are a Middle Eastern people, and they behave no differently than their neighbors. They just happen to be different enough to hate each other.
Also, the idea of Israel was never really meant to happen. They were supposed to go to Madagascar, but they never ended up there. I think Madagascar would have been a much better place for them, Josh. An island off the coast of Africa, kind of away from everybody, with geographical features kind of consolidating it.
What would have are there people on Madagascar?
There should be. They go by a specific name.
But yeah, they feel they're entitled to, and the thing is, like I said many times on the stream, Zeb and I are both Christian. We believe in the Old Testament. However, this does not entitle them to it today. And like, they kicked people out. I understand why the people are mad. They act like the people should have just accepted this, even though I think there is a claim to the land to a certain extent. I mean, I think it's kind of worn out, but like they're surprised that people are mad that they kicked them out of what they believe to be their homeland.
All right, so this is
You're right. Modern Israel is not biblical. They forsook the Christ.
This is very important. I was born and raised dispensationalist, and dispensationalism means...
Is that Nancy Mace?
I hope so. Please, if it's Nancy Mace, please tune into some of our future episodes or go back and watch the other ones.
Or get in the kitchen.
But she says, it sounds like neither of you guys have read the Bible. We have read the Bible, and this is why we hold these positions, right? I mean, you can go to a ton of the church fathers, we're Protestants, so we're going to go to Luther. Luther wrote an entire book on the subversion of Jews. It's called The Jews and Their Lies. It's a collection of his ideas and why the Jews rejected Christ. They've rejected Christ, they crucified Christ, and that's where we are today. They are a monolith of people, and they exist, and they are a conspiring people. This is undeniable. They admit this, and they admit that they control the levers of power, which are media and money. Also, kind of call back to dispensationalism. Dispensationalism is this idea that there are dispensations of about 1,000-year periods where God has this idea of, he's trying to push this one thing within a where do you get Madagascar? Trying to put these ideas within dispensations, and it is carried with it that Israel is.
Our commenters are funny, dude.
Y'all are killing it today,
Ninja
dude.
Spades is killing it, man. He's
Dispensationalism
funny.
Carries it with this idea that Israel and the Jewish people and the state of Israel are the Israel of the Bible, and it is simply not the case. It is quite literally not the case that Israel of today is not the Israel of the Bible. The Israel of the Bible is the church, the believers in Christ, and Jews outright reject Christ.
Look at the parable of the vine tree. Read that very closely.
Let's see. Where do you get Madagascar? That's where they were originally to be sent, and not into Palestine.
But they leveraged everything that was going on, all the power that they had with the British government to basically annex the land and get their original homeland back.
That's where that high verbal IQ comes in. They do have a high verbal IQ, and that's why they are so successful in their subversiveness. I didn't even read it. Let's see what it says. That's not what I think he's behind. Yeah, I think he's behind on the live stream. It's all good though.
Yeah, he's been commenting things that are not what we're talking about right now.
Catch up, but yeah, they seriously debated. They probably should have just went with Madagascar. It would have saved a lot of wars. But that is the purpose, isn't it, Josh? Isn't that they wanted to destabilize the Middle East so that we could fight wars for them? It's an intentional.
It's not enough to have a homeland. They want to be a regional power. They want supremacy over the entire world, to be honest.
Our CIA has admitted to coupping like 15, 16 countries in the Middle East.
On their behalf.
Look up the Greater Israel option. This is what they're advocating for. The Greater Israel option is that they're trying to build this Greater Israel, which is a larger portion inside of the Middle East. And to do that, they have to destabilize these Muslim or Middle Eastern countries to the point where they can grow. You got to go? All right, Josh got to get going. It's all good. Dude, we've been going for 2.5 hours.
And I noticed our view count dropped off. I wouldn't be surprised if Myron's stream has started.
Maybe. Let's check it out. Dude, hey, if you are here from Myron, if you're not here from Myron, thank you for stopping by. We greatly appreciate it. Again, we go live. I'm probably going to get more consistent now that we have decent viewership. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 2:30. I'll probably start trying to do my own live stream separately, and I think Josh wants to do his own also. So we're going to see how this goes. If you don't know, Josh Vandernoord on YouTube and Twitter, also Josh, typically spelled, and then Vandernoord, Vandernoord. You can check out his X and YouTube also. And then if you want some hot takes or you want to get a hold of me, Twitter's the easiest way, dude. I'm all over Twitter. Definitely not afraid to say whatever I want to on there.
Ghost says, thanks for streaming. Thank you for watching. And thank you guys for participating. You know, usually when I watch other people's streamers, and maybe it's because I've heard of them because they're super famous, the comments are typically crap. But I'm genuinely, and maybe I'm also, because I work in radio, I'm used to crappy phone calls from boomers. But I'm genuinely impressed by a lot of the people commenting. They're asking really good questions. And there's a couple characters, specifically Ninja of Spades, super funny, like genuinely making me laugh. Keep it up, guys. We love it.
Shepard, you're coming in a little late, big dog, but we appreciate you being here. If you want to drop in, kind of catch a little bit of the past this stream. I thought we had a pretty decent stream today. Myron did go live about 6 minutes ago, so y'all guys head on over there. I know a lot of you came from there, so I'm going to respect Myron's time. Go tell him, hey, if you enjoy the chat, let him know, brother. Because he's definitely put us on, and I want to pay that back to him somehow. I don't know how I'm going to do that now yet, but hey, one day we might be big enough, Josh.
I think we will.
Try to push this Overton window because we are outside of it, and we are going to continue it on. If you're new here, please subscribe. Go check out the my most recent podcast, The Touch Grass, is featured on the channel. Appreciate it, boys. OSS, we appreciate y'all. Go check out Myron. Thank you.